Okay, I would entertain a motion to go out of exempt session.
So moved.
Moved by Councilperson McCann,
Second.
second by Councilperson Rickliffs. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are out of exempt session and back into open session.
Okay, just close the meeting then. We're good. Close this meeting. Good, so it was just agenda item, so okay. So Kevin, I'm gonna have you hang up and come via Zoom. We have food in the break room back there, if you guys just wanna go grab something while we get ready for the second piece here.
Okay.
Are you gonna have DoorDash deliver them?
Yeah. You know what, I'd offer to be DoorDash. No, I'm joking.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, sounds good, thanks.
That's what you think it was. I agree.
My dear, I am fine. Good. So did you find a good fucking space where you can? Yes.
How we doing?
Yes, I did. I came a little early so that I could do that. I did. Well, I stepped into say one and
Well, we have food in the break room if you guys want to go grab something to eat before we start. Do you need a coffee? Or just a little bit of coffee? How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Tyler, did you want paper coffee or are you good? I'm gonna write notes, but. I meant to go look in there. I can't open them, but I guess I could. Oh, those are your copies, sorry. Yeah. I think so, yeah. Everybody in the office. Nobody want to sit with us, Tyler?
What's that?
Oddly.
go get some. Do you want something to eat? Brandon, there's food back there. I got enough for everybody in the room. I want to start. I have a history lesson. I have a history lesson. I do.
Okay.
So we're just going to start with the
We will move
fiscal
on
year
to
budget.
the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget work session. I will turn that over to Ms. Navratil.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. Before we start into our long budget evening here for general fund, I just want to kind of go over some information. I have it in a PowerPoint up there for everybody to see, or presentation if you don't like the word PowerPoint. I also have a few hard copies floating around as well. But I wanted to start off this evening. Everything that we did for our fiscal year 2025-2026 budget was following the city council goals. And so those goals were adopted on January 6th of 2025. We spent time as a group discussing those goals. This is what was finalized. This is what was adopted and approved. So the theme for the CIP and the theme that you're going to see through our general fund budget discussion tonight, as well as the enterprise budget that I see Matt back there discuss, was to follow our city council goals. I know that we have had and heard a lot about property tax. I know that we've heard from our state legislatures, we've heard from the public that property tax is too high. So what our budget that we have before you follows what the public and the state legislature is sharing with us, that our message, or the message that we're hearing, is that people want smaller local government. I said that in the memo that is that was attached to the packet, but I wanted to just kind of discuss what are we talking about here. So we hear our assessments are too high. Well, how do we get to our property tax assessments? Iowa Code 441.21 states that the actual value of all property subject to assessment and taxation shall be the fair and reasonable market value of such property, except as otherwise provided in this section. Market value is defined as fair and reasonable exchange in the year in which the property is listed and valued between a willing buyer and a willing seller. Now, I think we all remember that they had Vanguard that went through. You got a letter from the county saying that they're going through and they're looking at property tax assessments. By state code, your assessed value has to be what the market value is. So when you were hearing that my assessed value went from $100,000 to $195,000, it was just following what that state code said, what was mentioned. Now, Iowa assessment limitations. That is what we like to call property tax rollback. There is a, what do they call it? Iowa assessment limitation factor and allowable growth for each property. So, this is where we talk about property tax rollback. So the assessments or property tax rollback looks like it started back in 1978. So we've been talking about property tax almost like since I was born or before I was born, which I'm getting old, so it's okay, you can laugh. I'm getting up there, I know. And so we've been talking about it a long time. And so the question is how does the state determine what the rollback is going to be? I know there's a calculation out there, but the Director of Revenue determines the rollback every year. So this upcoming current fiscal year, starting July 1st, the residential rollback will be 47.316% of your assessed value. So you take a $100,000 home, then you reduce or roll back those taxes. That is what you're actually paying on property tax. You're not paying on the full assessed value. Commercial property tax is a little bit more complicated. So the first $150,000 of assessed value is rolled back to that residential rate, or that 47.316%. After that 150,000, then it's rolled back to 90%. So there's a little bit of calculation there when you start, figuring out and determining what your property tax payments are going to be. So, kind of a history lesson here. I like going back and just kind of learning to see where, what started the discussion of property tax reform. Is that something that has been discussed prior years, or is it just prior to, or what did it just come up during House File 718? So, in 1975, Iowa Code allowed for $8.10 levy. So I know we've been talking a lot about what the levy is. That's what you pay on your property tax. That's your base number. At some point in time, I don't know when, I couldn't find that research. I couldn't find the year that it was adopted. But for communities that were at their 810 levy, communities were able to add a 27-cent emergency levy. So that would make it $8.37. Now that doesn't include any debt, that doesn't include any of our employee benefits. That's just what we are allowed to charge for property tax assessments. Now, I did a little additional research because I like to know some numbers here. Now in 1975, does anybody have an idea of what that number would be equal today? Google told me it was $47. So back in so that was quite, that was, in 1975, that was quite a bit. In 2013, legislation passed to remove the multi-residential from commercial classification. So I'm going to go back to my little handy dandy worksheet here. So if you go back to the Iowa assessment limitations, you'll see the assessment year, agriculture, residential, and then you'll see this another added section here where it's mostly white. Multi-residential was created. So it used to be commercial. Then in 2013, it was pulled out of commercial. It's kind of made its own classification. And that classification was multi-residential. So anything that has 3 or more living units in a building, that's considered multi-residential. And so back in, it looks like in assessment year 2015, that rollback would start, and that number was 86.25%. And that rollback was going to reduce each year until it reached the residential number, which was in 2022. So we had 86, 82, 78, 75, 71, 67, 63 to now where we're at today. We're at the same number as that 47.43%. I'm not going to get into the 47%. That has been backfilled by the state. I know we had discussions with our state legislatures. I know that you've heard that a lot of communities were banking on having that backfill in their budget, because this is all general fund dollars here. So this is all property tax. This is all that funds police, fire, parks, recreation, and the library. In 2021, the payments began to phase out. But what we did here in Storm Lake, we started to phase out those payments in 2018 because we knew that the state legislature could not keep a promise, or I know we use the word promise, that's not the right word, but we knew that they couldn't, I guess, the future, I don't know how to say this, the future state legislatures does not have to follow what was said or determined in previous legislation. Just like city council. I mean, you can't say in 5 years that the city council in the future has to do this, X, Y, Z. Same thing with the state legislature. Did that make, okay. So in 2018, we were being good fiscal managers. We figured that that might happen, and so we started putting a budget out that did not have the backfill in it. So what you're gonna have tonight is it doesn't have the backfill. Okay, we started phasing that out. What did we do with that? We were putting it into projects. We put it into our parks. We put it into some road projects. But we were looking at long-term sustainability because we knew we were going to get to this point where we needed to plan to not have that. So I'm going to fast forward to House File 718. This was passed in 2023 to bring all levies back or under $8.10 to reduce property tax growth. House File 718 considered, there's a bunch of levies in, there was a bunch of levies. I'm not gonna go through all of them, but they consolidated them. The ones that were not consolidated are your employee benefits, insurance. So that was not touched. But everything else was. So, in order to reduce the property tax, they consolidated into this new levy amount. And the new levy combined, reduces the newly combined levy rate of non-TIF taxable. So they took TIF out of it. What also occurred with the House File 718 is that if growth triggers are met or exceeded, or the cities were limited on what they could collect for property tax. So if you had no growth in your community, which there's some out there that had zero growth, some really near us, then they did not see what we call the ratchet back effect. So they did not lose revenue. Now, if you were in that 2.5 to 3.99% growth, you saw a ratcheting back effect. So we are actually seeing less revenue coming in because we had a higher assessed or growth in our community. I'm not going to go back through all of that because you can read through the numbers there. So what I had Tyler do as our city treasurer here, I had him do some math, which so our current levy rate, which we all know is $8.12. That's what our current fiscal year is. So when City Council approved the budget a year ago, that $8.12 was the levy rate. What is going to be proposed is, because of that ratcheting back effect, and because we grew, the current levy rate for July 1st of 2025 will be $8.04. Now, forecasting, Tyler did some forecasting for me, thank you very much. We anticipate with some nominal growth that in 2026, 2027, we'll be at $7.96. And that 2027 and 2028 will be at $7.88.
Can you see those last two again?
In fiscal year 27 and 28, our estimation is that we'll be at $7.88. So we'll be less than our numbers in 1975. Just let you digest that a little bit. Tyler's going to show us during our budget presentation. You're going to see that you probably already saw it already because you probably looked at your packet already. You have the pie chart. What does that $8.04 pay for in this upcoming fiscal year, starting July 1st? It's going to be public safety at 49%, recreation at 22%. So that's 3/4 of our budget right there, using that $8.04 levy. And then you have council administration, you have economic development, library, they're all under 5%. I want to point out band is 0.13%. I know that looks like an outlier. Back in, the 1920s, I believe, the city went out to a vote to have a band. In order to not have a band, it would have to go back to a public vote. So the question to cut band, it would be a vote. I've had that question before. So, well, I mean, that's in your city council packet. So the question is what did we do back in 2018 to the future? How did we start presenting a budget to the city council? So we started using our franchise fees and our local option sales tax. And we started looking at what was in those general fund budgets that could be used for franchise fees. For example, you're going to see tonight for public safety, parks, we're using franchise fees for general fund programming and operational support. What does that mean? That means equipment. That's where your vests are coming from. That's where your bunker gear is coming from. That's where that type of public safety equipment is coming from. This is where your Hawk signal for your CIP that was approved last night And then it's also used as our project matches for grants. So we have Oneida Street coming up in the next couple of years, and then we also have public service vehicles. We're going to talk about levy rates tonight. I know that we'll get into some bigger details later on, but I just want to show that our current levy rate for this current fiscal year, and that includes everybody, because we have the schools, we have the county, we have the city, we have some of the community college, and we have some of the hospital that includes this levy rate. So that total amount of this current fiscal year's levy rate is $41 per $1,000 of value. So the current city's levy rate is $13.60, which is 33% of the total tax bill. If you take your dollar, that's what it is. So it's a third of a dollar is what you're paying for city property tax. I know it comes out and says that we're paying too much in property tax. You know, we as a city, we hear that. We just want to make sure that the message is out there that it's a third of your tax bill. It's not 100% of those dollars are not coming back to the city. It's this. So what does that mean for the proposed levy rate of $15.17? So I just picked a commercial property that is valued, it's in the downtown area. I selected it for two reasons. One, it's in the downtown commercial area. It's $230,000 and $230,470. Now I'm going to go back to my worksheet where it says you take that first $150,000, that's rolled back at that 47%, and then you take the rest of that value, and that's valued, and you have another 90%, 10% is rolled off on that. So with a $13.60 total tax bill this year, what would that increase for next fiscal year? So the proposed tax levy that we have in front of council tonight, the $15.17. So that commercial property would increase per month $18.62 for the proposed budget that we have in front of you. What does that do for residential? So a residential property valued at $240,000. What we did, we based everything on what the average market value for a home is right now. Just went to realtor.com. They give it to you. Right now it's $236,000. When we were doing all of our research, it was $240,000. So again, our current city's levy rate is $13.60. So when the proposed levy that council will be hearing tonight, that will, for $15.17, that will increase that residential property $14.94 a month.
And that's just based on the city's portion.
That's, I only based it on the city's portion because you have all of the other taxing entities that are having the same conversations. I don't know what the county's gonna go up. I don't know what the school district's gonna go up. I don't know about the community college, or the hospital is very nominal. I think it's just a 27-cent emergency tax for
For emergencies.
I was gonna say emergencies, yeah. And I just wanted to have this discussion with council, because once you start seeing, because we were just talking earlier about being visual, and when I started looking and doing some of this research and seeing the visual piece of it, that this is actually your tax dollars. It's just 30% of your tax bill, and then you hear that, oh, the city's going to increase it. Well, why are we increasing it? Well, we went through that. We're going to go through that again. Public safety, recreation, employee benefits, insurance. All of that is costing more, but we're getting less property tax for it, though. Don't you have any questions?
We don't have any indication that the legislature has figured out that this is not helpful and that they're going to do anything about it, do we?
No, no, I don't. We were at the legislative coffee. Some of us were there. Property tax, again, is another issue that came up from one of our legislators, that they're still hearing from the public that property tax and paying property tax is too high. I mean, you'll read through my budget memo, you know, we're not replacing positions. We're looking at cutting some programming, so that we can keep our, balanced budget. But I also think that when you look at these property tax cuts or property tax in general, the blanket approach, because not every city's the same. We're gonna go through, and I guess, not every city's the same. They offer different services, they have different types of needs, they have, they may not be a full service, they may have different ways of operating. We're gonna go through a worksheet here on what all of the parcels are, taxable versus non-taxable. You know, we have some agencies that don't pay property tax, they're nonprofit. And so that approach of everything's the same is not. You have, another option is, some communities have a downtown SMID. So they have a special assessment tax that is purely just for downtown. Not all cities have it, but if you're comparing apples to apples, I mean, there's one that is very similar in size to us that has a SMID. And so that means that they're not spreading their property tax all around. It's just the downtown is paying, is paying different. And is paying a little bit more, but those dollars are only focused for downtown. So when you look at this approach, every city's different. I mean, we looked at, the larger communities that are growing, which is us, we're seeing the effects of it a little bit more. Because when you grow, yeah, your assessed value is going, but we've also added, additional, I shouldn't say we haven't added additional roads, but you're looking at different services and more services that we have to offer because you're adding more housing, you're adding more people, stuff like that. So it's very interesting to start tracking.
It's frustrating when you grow by 2.75 or whatever percent it was, and then your taxes are less. What you bring in for taxes are less because you grew.
Right, it feels like an unintended
frustrating.
consequence that they're not, that's not being acknowledged. I shouldn't say that, it's just not being acknowledged.
That your actual taxes you get per capita, you get more taxes if you don't grow than you do if you grow.
Yeah.
It just seems backwards, but.
What I have heard also argued is there's no consideration at the assessment level. Now, again, just a reminder, the assessment has nothing to do with the city. We don't control it. It's done by the county. So at the assessment level, the new House File 718 does not take into consideration new construction versus actual assessed growth. So if you have new assessed value, you're providing new services to those locations. And it's not being considered when you're talking about limiting what those revenues are. So say, take, for example, a full subdivision. If you develop a full subdivision, it's gonna require, many services from the general fund, including recreation, including public safety, and all of the above. But that's not taken into consideration when they're taking the money away because you grew by that amount. So there are arguments out there that I have heard based on new valuation versus just increased valuation. But other than that, there's been nothing else that I've heard traction on that side.
But again, our approach tonight is the same people that elected our state legislators are the same ones that elected you. So, yes, and so what we have before you is, I'm gonna go back, to go back to the city council adopted goals, and we're just gonna leave that up for a second. When we went back and started looking and trying to figure out what the balanced budget's gonna look like, I mean, it was a month ago, 6 weeks ago, that, we were at a $1.9 million deficit. Yeah, it wasn't a good place to be. But when we started looking at what are we gonna do, what are we gonna focus on, how are we gonna get to that balanced budget, it's this. This is why your adopted goals are so important for driving staff into what those decisions are. So when we come forward, we're not gonna be here. We have a deadline. That's the other thing with House File 718. We have some deadlines we have to meet. like, we have to have something into the state by tomorrow on what that consolidated tax levy is, so. That's why we're having this conversation too. But we've always had such a compressed time to get the general fund budget done. We know that. By the time we get our assessed values from the county and we start working through all of this, it's just a few weeks that we have to get a budget ready for council to consider before all of these deadlines hit. We also have to look at publishing requirements, and that's truly what drives a lot of what our schedule is the publishing. Is when can we get it into the paper? Because we're required to put it in the paper. And so when we start planning it, we start working that way, and then coming up with our meetings and having our internal deadlines. So that's why we're here tonight, is to go through the general fund budget, the CIP. We already did. That's a little bit easier to manage. We have a little bit better time, longer time to get that done. That's why we start in January, because we can't usually have these talks until we get those assessed values. Because we would just be talking and not really getting anywhere. So with that, do you have any questions? I mean, I just thought it was really interesting as I started going through like the whole history of property tax reform in Iowa. Been talking about it for a while. So it's been a common theme since at least the 70s. It's the greatest years I've heard. I don't know. No? All right, so if we have no questions on the information I submitted, we'll just go into, Maida, if you want to go into the core services, just so that everybody can see what that pie chart looks like. So you have your public safety, recreation, airport, library, economic development and band, and then city council administration. We joked internally that if you were to shut City Hall down and none of us were here, you wouldn't be saving but $58,000 of general fund dollars, and still trying to figure out how are we gonna, have customer service and, provide information to the community as well. It was just interesting. When you start looking at numbers, it's just interesting. We like seeing all of that, so. Any questions with the pie chart? This parcel data of 2024. So I had Lee and Tyler do some digging for me. Again, numbers are fascinating, information is fascinating, and again, when you go back and you start looking at taxable value and how because you can't compare city to city because we're all different. So I had them pull the parcel data for 2024. So Tyler, if you want to go ahead and start and talk about the parcel data here, because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So the first number on there is the total assessed value. That is the amount that the assessor has gone around and valued all the property that's available to be assessed within the city limits. The taxable value then takes in all of those rollback requirements, what percentages they are in other items like that, and that develops your total taxable value. Now the full total assessed value includes everything that is exempt as well. So you can see the prior year full total assessed value was 902 million. The full total assessed value is 939 million for 2024. So there is assessed value increase, but that doesn't mean that you're capturing all of that percentage of your taxable value either. So when you're looking at the total assessed value versus the full total assessed value, that difference is your total exempt assessed value. So of the $939 million of full total assessed value, $105 million of that is exempt property. That's 11% of the total assessed value within the community is exempt. So we looked a little bit further into it, and we were able to acquire the actual acres of Storm Lake, which is classified as city, inside city limits. So of all the assessed acres, there's 1.4 million total acres of assessed value in Storm Lake city limits. Of that, 874,000 is what's available to be assessed. That difference of 613,000 acres is what's exempt. That's 41% of the total square acres within city limits that is exempt from property tax, and the city of Storm Lake and other taxing authorities are not able or eligible to collect tax on. 41% of the total land.
So the exempt are nonprofits.
So a little bit further down on that sheet, it breaks it out by the total exemption. So 38 million of that is taxing authorities. 27 million is our economic development exemptions. You have 17 million of literacies, society and educational institutions. 11.6 million are religious institutions. 7 million are charitable and benevolent. And you have 2.1 million in college. And those exemption classifications are identified by the county assessors. And those are the categories of which they use. That total acreage of 41% of the total acres in city limits is non-taxable. It's a lot of ground. And a lot of it is parks. These are open recreation park areas.
So again, as we go through, it's again fascinating data to know, because you have some communities that are not, don't have the park system, don't have the educational facilities that we have, the nonprofits. So they have a little bit more, you can compare a community that is maybe the same size, doesn't have the same makeup as what we have here in Storm Lake.
So this doesn't make, this question, it's just my curiosity. It's got nothing to do with what we're gonna wind up doing with the budget, but say for all of these exempt, how much of the, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, how much of these exempt properties are actually developed and how much of them are sitting empty? Just lots.
We don't have a lot of lots that are sitting empty.
Owned by these privates?
Oh, by the I thought you meant the city, sorry.
No.
We have, you had,
I'm just trying to think of as far as, I can think of a few offhand, but we do not have a lot that I'm aware of.
are you talking to that?
Are you saying, I'm saying that are nonprofit undeveloped, or is that what you're asking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We did not break it down to that, no.
I know what you're asking, so yeah, what is sitting there just without anything on it?
Yes.
There could be something?
There is.
We could certainly look into that too.
Yeah,
Yeah, that,
we didn't break it down that far,
I mean, it would be interesting to know,
yeah.
and not that we can do anything about it, if this entity owns this,
Mhm.
this plot of land and they just wanna let it sit empty for, let's see, how long have I lived here, 13 years? And not pay taxes on it, it hurts the city also, because that could be a plot of land that we could develop, since we're talking about economic development. So,
Absolutely.
the way I think
Right,
about it.
okay, I see where you're going now. Yeah, so we can do a deeper dive. There is some properties this is where I was going. We have some properties in our zone, I was going through our zoning map. Okay, we have about 6 or 7, properties available for our industrial, in our industrial zoning area.
because each one's gonna be different in different zones, right? I see what you
Right,
mean.
and that's where my mind was going, where are we zoned at? Downtown doesn't have a lot, we have a few empty lots here. For housing, There's very little. We have some info lots. And then we have.
Even if they're not, even if they're exempt, you still have lots that don't have anything on them that are getting minimal property taxes on it. If they were developed and be having a $200,000 home on it, you'd be getting more taxes off. That too.
Or commercial, yeah.
Yeah, so it wouldn't just necessarily be the non-exempt, it's just open property at all.
Well, what I can tell you is that we're not done talking budget. We're gonna continue having these discussions, and I think that's important as we start looking at, economic development was, one of the top priorities for city council, so highlighting and figuring out what those lots are, and this coming out with a, I guess a map is, in my mind, what do we have, what's our map, what's the total acres that we can develop, what type of, business can go on that, is it housing, is it commercial, industrial, stuff like that, so we're gonna be working on that. Yeah. What? Snow emergency?
Thanks, number 50.
Does everybody's phones go off here? No, we're gonna continue to have a deep dive. I just thought, let's look at our parcel data. What is it that, because again, this information I think is valuable because you can look at another community and be like, well, this is what we have. When we start talking about property tax, the one type approach isn't working.
If I may, on your question there, for just the parcel data itself so we get all this information, strictly from the assessor. There are 367 total exempt lots, 102 of those do not have value in a commercial building or dwelling.
I'm sorry, what was the first number? 300?
367.
See, it's fascinating information, isn't it, when we started to do a deep dive?
Someone
Now, I'm
reached
not
numbers,
saying
now
that there's
you've got
not
me
something
hooked
on
it,
the
yeah.
ground itself, I'm just saying that the county is not assessing a commercial or residential structure on that.
Okay. Just throwing it out there because it's interesting. So now, let's put out state agency funding. So we received applications for, imagine the possibilities. It's waiving fees, Salute for 2 workshops for interpretation and immigration, BV Historical Society for preservation of cabin and schoolhouse, Ready, Set, Grow facility remodel, Witter Gallery mosaic art facility improvements and education, Upper Des Moines Emergency Assistance, Lake Preservation Association, Lake Shoreline Rearmoring Project. That one was in there because the request came late. Typically, we would have those discussions during our CIP, but it did not work that way. I wanted council to be able to at least see it and make a determination if this is something that you wanted to do this next fiscal year. And then SLU development, membership, events, tourism, and marketing. So with that, we got homework.
My first question on this is how much, I had trouble working through this, not knowing exactly what dollar amount we were actually looking for.
It was
Yeah, are
50,000,
we-
yeah.
And there's no way we can do that at 50,000.
So council can increase that number 50,000.
That's why I was wondering if we're better off looking at the rest of the budget first and seeing if there's areas that money can be gained to help support some
certainly
of
can
those.
do that. Yep, we
I
certainly can do
don't,
that.
in my mind, I don't know if this is the first thing we want to look at.
Yeah, I can see the wisdom in that. I know that last year when we did this, you showed us what each of us submitted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. But I think you're right. I think this should not be our priority. Our services and running our city efficiently and giving back to services is going to take priority in my mind.
Or and at least gives us a chance to see if there's other spots where money can come from to help support some of these. I don't know if there is, because I haven't seen.
Or, for me, I'm not willing to take money from all those other spots to.
Depending on what they, yeah, exactly, it just depends on what they are.
Well, I can tell you what we did is, the budget that you have before you, does have $50,000 allocated to outside agency funding.
And we have a total, what's the totals here?
And the total request is 101,000. We did take out the $20,000 request for membership from Storm Lake United, and we put that actually in economic development where the other fees and memberships go. So what you have here is just 101,000.
So SLU here is
SLU
actually 40.
Would be, yeah.
40.
Yeah, because the total request was 65, I believe, so.
46.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't do my homework, and
I was hard, it was difficult.
I
trying to-
didn't because I just don't think we have the room this year. I don't really have a problem with waived fees.
I don't
you know,
either, right.
Waived fees, to me, using the shelter house when no one else is using it and taking good care of it, I think that's good stewardship, and I think
And
it's a
that's-
park, I think that's a good thing.
And that's not money coming out of the coffers itself.
I believe these other agencies have to put more effort in fundraising.
So I support that, and I know we keep saying we're gonna go on and come back to this. I submitted mine and tried very hard, and it was painful to come up and hit the 50,000. But bottom line, if we go through this budget, I'm gonna zero out mine. I think that they need to show their own due diligence in fundraising, and grants from other sources.
If we didn't receive anything, we put a 0 there.
Well, I had a lot of question marks on mine because I didn't know
Yeah.
where to go if there was.
Yeah, well.
Like if we had economic development, if we had money in economic development that wasn't spoken for, if some of these could fall under that. That's why wanted to look
Okay,
at,
yeah, we
look
can-
at those
yep.
first to see what was. I'm
Yep,
just
we
pick-
can come back.
I'm just picking on economic development because I just pulled it out of, just pulled an idea. But I didn't know if some of those, there might be something.
So let's go back to,
Yeah. This is why I
I'm
got
not
so
talking
much money.
I'm not talking positions.
At the
So,
same
yeah.
time, I think we need to recognize that this isn't our doing. The state has told us how much money we're going to get. So when agencies don't get the funding that they wanted, that they requested, then the buck doesn't stop here.
well, and that's why I go back to my budget memo. I guess usually not so verbose in it. I've never written like 2 pages before. But we sat back, we looked at our budget, we listened to the legislators. We've had multiple meetings at our coffees, at our breakfasts, and what they have been saying is that they're hearing from constituents, their constituents, our constituents, that property tax is too high and, to reduce the footprint of local government. That's what we have in front. Now, because that is what was voted, that's what the legislature did, that is the budget that is prepared and put in front of you. There's not a lot, we never had a lot of, fat to begin with. We've always been very budget conscious. I go back to when the backfill was, when we had the backfill, we started to budget without it. Can you imagine sitting here today if I said to you, our taxes, our property tax went down and we don't have the same backfill? What do you think we would be today? I think because we properly manage the budget that we have in front of you, that we have a really good balanced budget that follows what the city council goals are. You're elected by the people. This is what you're elected to do. You came up with the goals because of what your community members are telling you. We took those goals and put them into the budget that you have. And yes, there's gonna be some services that are gonna not be the same. And my response to that is that you have to have your voice heard. You as electeds have your voice heard. Let's go to general fund and special revenues. So Tyler, it's all yours now.
So we've kind of hit the revenues there. It just reiterates what was stated previously on the slide. So since the 2021, the non-tip taxable valuation has had an average growth, which is fortunate for Storm Lake, 3.615%. And that's how I got to those 1% trigger limitations on the proposed tax levy going forward. Again, it's an assumption just on the last 4 years of valuations, changes. And again, we've been fortunate to grow at 3.16%. Several other communities are not growing at that rate, but it is triggering that. Just like us this year being at the 2.79%, or 4/100% off of no 1% limitation trigger, but we're getting that now this year. A lot of communities are still at their, and they're around us, are still at their 810 because they're not hitting those, they're not growing like we are. So that's where those estimations come from, and that's the estimated values of those taxable valuations. So the max collection is gonna be just over $3 million, based on the new consolidated general fund levy, which is a revenue growth of 1.77%. So we are collecting more revenue because of that growth, but with the restriction, it's only the 1.77 that we're actually capturing, not the full amount. So that coupled with our charges for service, most of those charges for service are going to be outlined in your fee resolutions or set by the boards and commissions that are a part of the general fund. So the total revenue for just operations, just for general fund, are $4.3 million. Now a little bit later in here, I show a slide on the appendix that shows the property tax value on appendix C. The property tax value, the total cost for personnel, plus the general fund's personnel cost alone. As you can see across the general fund, my date's on appendix. Last page. So the green line there on that sheet is the property tax revenue, just from the property tax based on valuation that's controlled by House File 718. The yellow bar is your total payroll, personnel payroll for the general fund. The orange line is your total personnel costs, including the utilities. The amount of revenue generation just strictly from property tax is not enough to sustain the personnel that you have. This is why your supplements for the programming, such as your franchise fees, your local option sales tax, your hotel motel tax, all these other special revenues are required in order to maintain the operations. They may not be able to go toward the benefits and salaries of personnel, but they are able to assist with the other functional programs of those departments, which allow the property tax dollars to keep personnel to provide those core services that are required throughout the community. Total expenses for the year then are just over $7 million. Again, the personnel is $3.3 million. The amount of that $7 million, $2.3 million is non-discretionary. These are items such as your utilities, facilities, other core requirements. For example, fuel. We can't have, public services or others, fire truck, but not buy fuel for it. Those are non-discretionary items that you're required to have. So those are all coupled into there. Of the $7 million, $517,000 is discretionary. That's at the control, and what we sit down for those 6 to 8 weeks with the department heads of what are we going to do within your budget, what you have control of. The remainder $867,000 are the capital projects. Again, those are funded by those outside revenue sources that are only eligible for those types of programs. So when we're looking at our discretionary portion of the actual general fund of the $7 million, we're really talking about we control $517,000. So when we're discussing with the department heads, or you have questions with the department heads, or if you're looking for more money for outside agency or other items, you're looking at that $517,000. And I can tell you that all the departments heads have trimmed everything. So,
Yeah, those are not easy conversations to be had with every, and you'll notice, again, we set this worksheet up differently than we had last year because we wanted to break out, we can't do what we do without people. You can't fill a pothole without a person. You can't go and respond to a fire call, a police call without a person. We had a situation on Sunday where we had Scott, building official for safety. We had the fire chief and the police department there. So you had 3 agencies for one particular call. And so when we start discussing what we have in discretionary funds, 500,000 is what we have in our budgets. And those we're looking at some pretty deep reductions. I'll go back to the memo. I'm not gonna reiterate it there. You guys can read it, the public can read it. Those are the recommended reductions for the general fund. Now we have each of the departments here tonight to go through their respective departments. You can ask questions to them. But again, we go through and we talk personnel, non-discretionary and discretionary. And your capital, again, that was approved last night. We talked really, we spent a lot of time on the capital as well. So we're looking at really your discretionary funding for each of the departments. So with that, we'll start with the police department. If there's any questions there. Emergency management, fire department, and building official.
So at this point, the last pages on there are just highlighted, both the resolution changes. We kind of discussed that last time, that we're going to have our fee resolution article. So you have really 2 options. When you're reducing the amount of revenue or the ability to supplement that department with anything, there's 2 ways. You gotta increase revenue or you have to cut back expenses. So not only are we looking at and done the full deep dive into the departments and what we're spending the dollars on, there's another portion of that of let's look at our fees. Are we charging enough? Now statutorily, you are not allowed to charge more cost than it is to be able to provide that service. So for example, when we're looking at building permit costs, we are not allowed to charge more than it actually costs for us. Now, that's difficult because you have some, shingle permit. So just so that way we know when the shingles are being replaced, so we can report it to the county. And you don't put more than 2 layers. Really, you're just looking at coming in, taking staff time to be able to get that permit, but then you're looking at staff time to go out and actually visually inspect and make sure you don't have more than 2 layers of shingles on there. So you gotta equate that. That's an easier one. Then you have an Iowa Central Community College building or a BVU forum that's being constructed, which I can't even equate the number of hours that were spent during those inspections to remain compliant. So some departments are a little bit more difficult. Other departments are kind of taking what's outlined in statute, like this is the recommended fee amount. We continue to watch that as they propose other things as well. So when we're talking about the departments, the last page is the fee resolution. I'll just have the departments kind of highlight what their recommended changes are. So when the fee resolution comes forward for these changes, they're included in there. If you have concerns with any of those proposed fee changes, as the department has requested, then we can address them now before we get to the resolution.
And I just want to point out too that some of these fees are currently being discussed at the state legislature as well. So, for example, there was a, pet licensing. There was a discussion on pet licensing. Should cities be able to require a payment to license your pet? I think what they decided is that you can now, but they'll cap that amount at $40 per pet license. We're not at that $40, we're under the 20. But the concern is that you have, you're required to have an animal control program. We have an ordinance that says you have to license your dog and cat, It costs city funds to do that. And how do we sustain that? Partially is through those fees. So that was one that is under discussion right now. I don't think that's gonna affect us because we're not at 40. Now, if you make it to 41, maybe, if you change that to 41. But joking aside there's another one for building permits. That was that last week, Scott, that there was another subcommittee that the building permits would be capped at $500. I'm gonna pick on a large industrial, it's a construction project that's going on. You go there multiple times a week, $500 at a cap of say a $30 million project. You know, that's you're spending a lot of time to go in there, and you're doing that for the health and safety of the community. So when you look at public safety here, you have the police department, emergency management, fire department, and our building. We call it our building official. They're all in our public safety. They go in, they do the rental inspections, they do the public, the building inspections, all of that for commercial, all in to residential as well. Fire department, we all know. There, we've had increased calls for fire department, emergency management, and then the police department as well. So this is your public safety department. This is the 49% of our general fund budget here.
So the funnel was today? Or
Tomorrow.
some of the bills that we've been tracking that would affect us as a city, do we think they're gonna make it through the funnel? What are you hearing, colleagues?
I'm hearing that the caps on like sewer may not make it. I don't know about the stormwater one. Some of it is due to the loans that are already outstanding or the bonds, because if you don't have a rate in place, or if it's going to cause your rate to fluctuate, your bond payments will be affected. The building permit one, I haven't seen it come, but we still have a few days left. A lot of like the property tax, a lot of the ones that deal with the financial aspect are funnel proof.
Mm-hmm.
The pet licenses, I don't know. That one might pass just because they did put a larger cap on it than no charging. And so I think the confusion is that you have a fee set by council and then you have property tax. Sorry, Scott. I moved away. I'll try not to kick you too. And so you have a fee, and that fee is to cover the service that we provide. Your property tax covers your essential services.
Well, I think what we need to make sure on our fees is that it does cover our costs. So we aren't picking up our costs out of discretionary funds somewhere
So
else. So we
this
make
list-
sure that our fees that we have are enough to cover our costs.
And this list of fees shows an increase, or are these the fees that we've had?
Yeah, so on the right side, the ones that are highlighted, the new fees on the proposed fees on the right side.
I'm
Yeah,
looking
so
at a
we'll
page
start.
that does have no.
Okay, so if we go first to the building official, the first fee that we're looking at increasing is the building moving permit. Currently, it's $100, we're requesting it to go to $150. They happen rare, every so often. One year we can have none, one year we had 3, I think.
At least, yeah.
So you never know what that might be. Demolition permit, we're requesting it $50 to go to $100. A re-inspection fee, so after the first inspection, Scott, you can,
Reinspection fee, what we're trying to do there is kind of dissuade people from calling to get an inspection until they're ready. A lot of times they'll be kind of halfway done, but they're in a hurry, so they'll call us out and it's not really ready. And we try to work with people, so we'll give them a chance, but if it kind of becomes a ongoing problem, this is, a way to try and recoup our costs from driving out, nothing happens, come back. So it dissuades them from doing that. That's, mostly how that we do that, but it does help accommodate or account for our time going back and forth on folks that are kind of over and over again trying to get something resolved. So that try to help cover that. So we assume a certain amount of inspections based on when we write a permit for something, you're kind of taking into consideration it's going to take X amount of time, so kind of get that done based on what the permit's for. So this just helps kind of alleviate that where we have folks that are not really trying very hard, so, but it doesn't happen that often, but it's just there as a tool.
Okay, and then we have the rental and registration fee. I know that a few years ago, we changed how rental inspections occurred. We actually reduced the fees a bit. We're requesting that those fees be basically reinstated to cover the cost of, I mean, again, we're not covering 100% of cost of the inspection. I just wanted to say that. We're just covering a little bit. I mean, you have mailings, you have contact, you have staff, you have vehicles, you have a lot of other, I guess, ancillary costs that go along with the actual individual going in there and doing the inspection.
The no-show fee is associated with rentals too, so that's where we set up a time to go show up. And as long as they call before the guys leave the office, then we call it good. But if you show up and sit out there for 15, 20 minutes and nobody shows up, come back because they missed their appointment,
And
that's
this is a no-show by the landlord.
correct.
And then the zoning request, that's again to cover the cost of publications, going from $200 to $300 time. There is mailings that have to go out that are required by code. We do have to notify the affected parcel property owners. If you go down, we'll see the new construction incentive for the single-family attached, single-family detached dwelling building permit. So many years ago, I say many, we're probably talking probably about 5 or 6 now, we had a construction, we had a meeting with potential new single-family building construction companies. And part of that conversation is that our permits were too expensive. So we did an incentive package where you built within a certain time period, you got your building permit for $1. That didn't really spur, I think, a lot of new single-family owner, but it did help with some of the workforce housing tax credits. They could use that as the city's, as a match the city was providing. We came back, discussed a few years ago at the city council level, we would like to have more, more of our contractors buying in the community, so that when you spend your local option sales tax, you buy and support local businesses. And so then we had the single family, then you had the incentive that we would rebate the permit fee. With the exception of the water meter, you'd have to pay for the 100% of that. But we would rebate 50% of the cost of construction of the permit if you purchased those items in Storm Lake. We've had 0 contractors come forward and ask for that rebate. Just asking to take it out. If it's not working, we don't need to keep it in our resolution.
Agreed.
And then just, slight modifications for your sign permits. Oh, did I miss one?
Yeah.
How do the contractors know about this? Do they have to search through?
No, we notify them. We actually, there's a contractor meeting that occurs every year, and then, they get letters as well.
When they take the permit out,
Yeah, it's
whoever's writing it, will let them know on the new houses.
Yeah.
Excuse me. 300 and 600.
Oh, yeah, the 300, and we're also removing the $300 home if you have construction costs under $199,000 and $600 for the homes for construction over $200,000.
It's kind of a flat rate, so.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think our limiting factor is not so much the fees as it is lack of lots to build upon,
Right.
so.
Right, and you still have to pay, again, the meter cost, so. But we weren't seeing a lot of, all of our newer construction that we're seeing that were multi-residential, they paid, the entire permit. It didn't seem to spur, these fees didn't seem to spur like new single-family home building. Then the building permit and all the sign permits, again, we just had some slight modifications for those. Those have not been updated, Scott, since
I don't remember, it's well before COVID, so probably pushing 10 years, I would guess at least.
Golf course, we're gonna skip over. So we're gonna go next to the police department for, the proposed fees.
So administrative, most of these fees that we, our proposal for increases are, there has been no increase for at least since I've been chief. So minimum 4 or 5 years, probably longer than that. The admin fee is just a fee that we charge at the office on certain tasks like tow, generating like towing, processing paperwork for specific items. The building escorts is a per car fee that we charge, and we just haven't increased that for some time. And so Tyler and I came up with a fee for escort fees that was, and that also goes with the police escort per hour for cars and staff based on our average hourly rate plus insurance and vehicle time. So those would be those situations where they need a private entity calls and needs a police escort for like moving a building across town. And sometimes we'll have to use like 4 or 5 officers to do that. And so that's one of the rates that we wanted to try and change so that we're not losing money. The pet licenses, we requested a small increase on those. Fingerprinting. The impound storage fees, we don't do a lot of, our towing process has changed significantly, so we don't do a lot of towing like we used to. Our processing, a lot of that goes through Tyson Rice now, but in certain criminal investigations, we still do. Parking tickets, we request that goes up. That's one area that has been the same since I've been here for, I think it was $10 when I first started 32 years ago, so it hasn't gone up significantly. Report copies, we just raised that last year or 2 years ago. And then that other ones are the escort fees and emergency response. That's to cover some of the materials that we use, like hazmat suits, rubber gloves, stuff like that, when we have to go into specific houses where there's chemicals or biohazard materials.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The fingerprinting fee, does that include, or maybe they don't do it anymore, fingerprinting of children and things like that, like they used to, kind of do?
I can't.
He said something about, does that include fingerprinting of children like they used to?
No, that's, the fingerprinting that we do is for people that are trying to get clearance for background checks for like different types of positions. And so, for example, if someone's gonna be work at the post office or work as a teacher or a coach or a nurse or a doctor, they may have to be fingerprinted for a background check. And so they'll bring cards in for their employer, and then we do the actual fingerprinting and fill the cards out for them.
Thank you.
All right, in fire department, we did do a pretty in-depth fee increase last year. So there's no proposed changes to these fees to the fire department. Do we have questions for the public safety? They're here.
Keep up the good work.
Oh, I guess I didn't, I forgot animal care there. We had the $6,000 for animal care as well, as part of the public safety. The fire department does include the adding 1/2 FTE for a full-time FTE in the budget. So that would be a total of 3 FTEs.
Three full times.
For full-time, yes, FTE.
People with all your initials.
I know, it's fun. So, with that, any questions for public safety? All right, if that,
You know, just quick, who does the fines for fireworks in the city? Is that police or fire?
Fines, meaning
Like,
criminal fines or like inspection, I'm not sure what.
don't they get a ticket?
They write tickets for that.
So that's a police,
Yes,
and what does that be?
I would have to look it up. I don't know off the top of my head.
Should go up.
well, it's a
There's a new bill getting ready to be voted
Well, I
on,
was gonna say,
so-
there's another bill coming forward
Yeah.
that would.
That you have to let them shoot them on.
Yeah.
And on the election of a new president.
It should go up.
Well, and the other concern with that too is just the debris that it leaves behind, too. I mean, if you can't catch them, you can't
We
ticket
can't do
them,
anything
fine
about the
them.
people that don't live within city limits, but you can bother somebody.
If you can, yeah, you have to catch them, you have to, the officer just can't give a ticket for somebody who might be, or where they were told they have to see
Yeah,
it.
you can legally possess them and buy
Yeah.
them, you just can't shoot them off in the city
Right.
limits, and so, but I don't know that the fine is a set fine, I think it's up to the judge, that they make a decision based on, in the code, it's kind of a discretionary. So I don't know that it's an actual set fine, but I can get back to you and let you know.
Just making a point. Nobody's gonna listen.
We all listen. We just may not be in the position to change anything. No. No.
I think that is discretionary on the judge, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So if there's nothing else for public safety, let's, I know we have some airport here, members here of the airport commission, so. Just if we need a quick break or anything, keep plugging along.
I'll take a quick break.
Okay.
Be right back. You can start plugging along now.
See if the city still, it sounds very well.
Yeah, I've been hearing it.
I know.
Except for the blinds are closed.
Okay, so why don't we have, we can talk next on airport.
Yeah, so as a liaison, you generally hear me bring to the city council the determining factors by the board, airport commission. The members of the airport commission are here as well as your FBO out there. The difficult task this year, just like other departments, between 15 and 25% is kind of what we talked about on cutting back on the cost. So when the commission met during the last meeting in February, there were some brainstorming ideas and looking at the costs of operating the airport. It didn't appear that the cost was so much as a place where they could do the savings. They focused more on proposing additional revenues. So right now they have a $1 markup on their fuel. So per gallon that's sold, they have a $1 markup for transient. They have a 10-cent markup for their FBO. And they would have a 90-cent markup on people who base their planes there. The other thing that they took into consideration is they're looking at increasing the cost of hangar rent. Across the board, $50 per hangar. It's not in your fee resolution. We will meet next Monday for them to actually do an approval to bring back for council consideration on their fee resolution. They'll also discuss that dollar rate increase as well. So a large part of their non-discretionary cost dollars are because they do sell fuel. So that markup on that fuel, so the cost of it is non-discretionary. So you either sell fuel or you don't sell fuel. I mean, it's one of those things. And with the fuel tank and dispenser system that's existing out there, The non-discretionary dollars are for the cost to continue to sell that fuel, and that increased margin or that markup that they're collecting, that goes back to help fund their general fund their general operations at the airport. So the proposed increase is going to be about $15,000 for hangar rent across the board, again, pending approval both by the commission and by the city council. That'll take place at the next meeting. That's equates to about $15,000 in hangar rent. And then the additional dollar on fuel is going to equate to approximate percentage on the fuel. They sold 57,000 gallons last year during the last fiscal year of total fuel. If you take away what's bought by your hangars and your FBO, you're looking closer to, you know, approximately a $30,000 increase in revenue. So you're looking about a $42,000 to $45,000 increase, because not all the hangars are full year-round either. So you don't generate 100% of that revenue, but that additional markups that you currently have with your FBO and that you have with your hangar tenants, we won't capture that full dollar additional markup that they're looking at acquiring. So they worked their budget and they generated approximately $42,000 to $45,000 budgeted additional revenue for the next fiscal year, which are included in the $376,000 of revenue and the $406,000 of expense.
That's considered transient, you said, hangar only.
Yeah, so transient, just somebody coming to Storm Lake. They're not based out of Storm Lake. They're not.
Are they carrying a sick kid?
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be. Yeah. The commission and the FBO are here. The FBO did outline several of the services, because when you talk about having an airport within your community, it provides such an economic impact to the community. But the problem is you can't equate that to dollars. So most, just like a railroad, similar to an airport, a lot of businesses or potential new businesses want to know what type of infrastructure, and included that infrastructure that you have running through your community are airports. So John provided some of the services that are provided out there within his report that's in there as well. But really need to talk about the economic impact and, you know, even the EMS services that are provided by having an airport where you wouldn't have that solution. They did improve their facility by constructing the helipad, but that doesn't get them the fuel, that doesn't get them some other thing. And it does not accommodate the straight wing aircraft that would need to come to Storm Lake for those services. And I'll let John or anybody from the commission kind of talk more to that, about the benefits and the impact of having the airport within the community, thus for the community. Anybody has anything on that?
I guess the only statement I would make would kind of coincide along with that is what you don't see a direct economic impact from an airport. It is that connection. We really have no way to know exactly who landed, where they went, what they bought, and then left. You don't see that kind of impact. The direct things that you do see are people that are flying in for businesses that you can kind of see, like the bean crush plant outside of town. That's been a very consistent one lately. I believe it was yesterday, there was 2 heart doctors flew in, you know, and went straight to the hospital. I have no idea what kind of economic impact that is to the community, the hospital, the airport. You know, what is the direct dollar amount you receive from it? Is there a benefit? Absolutely. I'm sure whoever got a heart, whatever, had a, you know, so there's things that's very intangible to a dollar.
But the Iowa DOT does some pretty exhaustive work on economic impact with regards to airports, and it's pretty easy information to find on the website. They estimate the total economic impact of the Storm Lake Airport specifically at 2.8 million and change. And they break that down into direct payroll, estimated economic. The part that gets gray is the estimated economic impact. So, you know, John's dad was talking about like First McNess when they first located here. Originally, Storm Lake was ruled out as a potential location for First McNess because they erroneously thought there was no airport here, and then a guy operations, a lot of business that we obviously want to attract here will rely on the airport. And of course, we use it all the time for fixed wing medical transport. The helicopter lands at the hospital, but it can't come here without the airport because all of those helicopter operators have standard operating procedures that they work out by letter of agreement with the FAA. And so, for example, when the automated weather observation system is down at the airport and it's not reporting ceiling and visibility requirements, the helicopters can't come. Because in their operating procedures that they've worked out with the FAA, they don't have weather reporting on the ground here as far as ceilings, wind, visibility, they can't land at the hospital. So there's a lot of things like that that are sort of going on. And then I want to make a quick comment about the fuel. It sounds tempting to say if we sold 57,000 gallons of fuel last year and we raised the price by $1, we'll make another $57,000. But everybody who took microeconomics in college, you remember the supply-demand curve has a peak on it, after which, you know, you raise the price to a certain level and then the demand goes down. And nothing is more sensitive to that than aviation fuel, because these days, I can open on my phone right now a map that shows me all the jet fuel prices within 100 miles a year. And for someone who's traveling through, or even operators that are based here, it's not too big of a change where, you know, if we're $1 higher than everybody else, well, I'll just get fuel, you know, when I get there. So aviation fuel prices are super sensitive to price changes that get you out of range with anybody within 100 or 200 miles of it. So that's a kind of a fine line to walk.
Do we pay attention to that so that we're competitive? You know?
Absolutely.
I mean, that we aren't way below?
Yeah, for sure. We're always looking at the surrounding towns, and to some extent, you'll see variability because we have to take, when we order fuel, it comes in a 10,000-gallon tanker, and so it costs extra if we take a partial load. So we try to take a full tanker, and we buy that tanker at, you know, X number of dollars, whatever the wholesale price is that day, and then our price is fixed at that amount until
That's used up.
and we buy another tanker. So what you'll see a lot of times is, like, we might be at $4 a gallon for Jet A, and Cherokee happened to run their tanker out and get a new one. In the meantime, the wholesale price has gone down, so there'll be a period of time where they're $1 a gallon cheaper than us, and then you notice it. I mean, everybody's over there buying fuel until, you know, we get a new tanker at the new wholesale price, or vice versa. So fuel prices are.
And we saw that huge, like, was it 2 years ago, for the avgas sales. We had really cheap gas. We've been sitting on it for a long time. And
Due to a confluence of factors, we were the cheapest avgas within, like, the tri-state area here, and it happened to be the same week. There's Oshkosh, Wisconsin is like this huge aviation gathering every summer. Like 10% of the certificated aircraft in the world are in Oshkosh, Wisconsin for like a week. And so it's like this pilgrimage where everybody between California and Arizona was stopping here for fuel all the way around the.
Are there ways to get, I fly commercial, so, sorry. Is there ways to get bigger planes here to buy more gas?
Generally, it's one of those things, they will weigh out what our fuel price is, how much fuel they can carry. A lot of these guys, when they're running their business jet or something, if our price is out of whack, they'll put enough fuel on the plane to fly here and home. If our price is something substantially cheaper than what they're buying it at home, they'll fly here with just enough, fill up, and then take that back home with them. And where you see the real disparaging difference between fuel prices is your big commercial airports. They might be $9 a gallon, and your smaller airports such as us, Spencer, Cherokee, any of these, we might be $3.75, $4 a gallon compared to the $9. So they don't want to pay the $9. So they'll come, when they stop here, and they're coming here anyway, they will fill up.
So like the commercial airports can get away with that because they've got a captive audience. The routes are set, the planes are going there, they have to fill up, so they can set the price whatever they want. And so like BT as an example, when they leave here to go to Naples or where, Atlanta, you know, they've got significantly higher fuel prices because they've got fixed routes coming in there. The planes have to fuel there. That's just the way it is. And so BT right now, you know, they're operating that CJ4 Cessna, and it has enough range to get them to Atlanta, but not back. So right now, they can't really tanker fuel effectively, but they just upgraded to a new jet, and that one's gonna have the range that they can tanker fuel all across the country if they want to. So if they leave here, and our fuel price is cheaper than wherever they're going, they'll just tanker fuel. So now we're selling fuel for the trip there and the trip back. So it's pretty easy with, you know, the automation you have even just on your phone nowadays to plan that out and see what's gonna be the most economical way to do it. So, you know, you can run into a situation where at $4.25, you're selling 100,000 gallons of fuel, and at $4.50, you're selling none.
And even if someplace is cheaper, when they push a pencil across some of this stuff, like say we're $4.50 and Sioux City's $4.25, it's not worth it for them to take off, fly over there and get gas. They burn 3 times that getting over there is what they would have saved. So they're factoring this in across the board.
And I can add to Tyler, we spent, at the last airport meeting, we spent a considerable amount of time talking about budgets and so forth. And we don't have a lot of wiggle room. And so that's why we're looking at trying to raise some fees to kind of offset.
Where he's talking, so of that $96,000, $74,000 is for your manager contract for bar flying service. $1,000 of those expenses are for your courtesy car. That's to allow people to be able to fly in and commute into town and spend their dollars locally. You have $17,000 worth of contractual services, so airports are very unique. Not everybody can work on an airport, even the lighting specific. You'll have to have a special electrician come in to do those, so your cost per service plus the maintenance of that fueling system come out of those contractual services, and just simply have $4,000 worth of supplies. The $74,000 for the airport contract is the largest portion of that, and again, you can't look at cutting your $1,000 or $1,000 for a courtesy car. You know, otherwise people can't make it to town and spend money, or they can't make it to their final destination. So they did take a look at all of those different things. Again, contractual services, I would argue that some of those are actually non-discretionary.
I was just gonna say, for $96,000 of discretionary, it sounded pretty non-discretionary to me.
Yeah, so, but you control those in the form of contracts, in the form of hiring for service, those types of things. That, you know, that's why it's classified as discretionary. Now, just to go back to the AWAS system that was brought up, when that goes down, that's actually DOT property. It's not anything that we can go out and fix. The DOT actually has to handle that. So when that's down and medical can't come to Storm Lake, and there's complaints throughout the community that, you know, your airport isn't allowing us to come to your area, some of that's out of the control and out of the control of the commissioner or the manager as well, and the city obviously. So just to.
How often does that go down?
It was down recently for an extended period of time. One of the explanations was ours is antique and they don't make parts for it. So they need another system that's being upgraded at a bigger class airport, and we will get the parts that will fix ours. We were lucky and actually got it fixed within about 2 months of when they told me, hey, this might not happen for 2 years.
So we had 2 months where the medevac couldn't come in?
I think it was fixed.
Yes, I think it was, that one particular time it was broke down, it was down for 6 months.
Maybe helicopters too. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and we had one guy that stopped in, and he was asking me about it, and I told him, we don't have a date. They can't tell us. They're waiting for this one to break so we can have the parts off it. And that's totally at their discretion as to who they're gonna upgrade and when. I don't know how their system works for them.
Now, the state DOT has brought it to the attention of the commission that you can buy one and give it to them. But you ain't lost it.
That's very generous of them.
Are you charging the Badger?
Which is an ungodly problem right now.
Well, you could make him a tourist attraction.
I thought we had it with a year ago, we had a badger problem, it was obvious, so we went out and USDA dispatched a guy up here, and so he set traps and whatnot, the two of us, we went out there and took care of it, and he's like, well, they take such a territory, we got, there's only gonna be one within so many 15 miles or 10 miles, whatever it is. And lo and behold, we've got another one. I mean, that one left, and not of his own will, but he left. And another one moved in there within weeks. And we're like, this just doesn't happen. So we've got another one, and now with the ground conditions we got right now, they've pulled the traps and stopped trying to trap, and they said they're just wasting time and money.
Catch him and sell him.
So,
We
I
don't
don't want to touch it.
We need to talk about that
So
later.
that's the struggle we're up against, like Mike suggested, or hit on, a lot of it is discretionary, non-discretionary, and our biggest source of revenue is fuel, and we're limited by those economic and practicality issues as far as what we can do on that. I think, so we're trying, we're increasing the fees where we can, but really our only two sources of fees are hanging out with fuel, so.
I would encourage everybody to look at that Iowa DOT. I printed out a very simple one that I found in about 5 minutes on Google. And I gave that to Tyler. I don't know if you pass that out to everybody or not, but it lists, and I don't know how accurate that is. They say if you spend $1 at the airport, $16 comes back. How do you quantify that? I don't know how that puts it in there. It says we have, without an airport, you can lose 27 jobs in Storm Lake without the airport being there. How that's figured, I don't know, but they do have a way they go through that. If you look at the numbers that they have put out there, Storm Lake in the category of airport we are, we crush everybody else around us. I mean, crush them. It's not even close. And then you take communities around us for what we have for services. Again, we by far and away exceed everything else. The only one that's even close to us, and they're in the same categories, are Spencer, has a regional airport, and Sioux Center, which is a regional, and we're in the numbers with them being a smaller airport. Yes, is this it, Tyler?
So if you look at the impact report, if you Google, or if you go to Iowa DOT aviation and Google that, it'll bring you to the aviation subdivision of the Iowa DOT, and there's a search bar in there. You can type in economic impact, and it breaks down all the towns around us. Just from memory, you know, in the surrounding areas, the economic impact estimated for Spencer is 7.2 million, which makes sense because they got a regional carrier in there, so they're bringing more in. Cherokee is at 1.2-ish, and Sac City was either 291,000 or 391,000. So for the size of airport we're at, the impact is.
I think we still need to get out there. I know the weather's obviously not been great right now, but it's easier to figure out what some of the things they're talking about.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that sits out by itself. You don't see it every day on your commute to work, and you just kind of forget about it being there. But absolutely, we'd be happy to take you out, show you around, what some of the things are that go on, and what we're talking about, and answer questions. Absolutely.
One of the things that concerns me, in the budgeting process, the airport is a little bit unique in that we are selling a product at a profit. That's probably not happening too many other places in city government. And if the budget numbers are solid for, we can only spend so much at the airport this year, and our fuel sales go up, then we're missing out on operating revenue coming back to the airport. if we can't buy fuel. You know, that's the way or the way the state budget looked. You know, you hit the budget maximum, you can't spend anymore. Well, if we hit the budget maximum in the middle of the year and we can't buy fuel anymore, then we're losing operating revenue coming back to the airport. And, you know, there's been some discussion here tonight about medevac, and tonight's weather would be a perfect example. When the visibility and the minimums get to a certain point, that helicopter can't land at the hospital anymore. But he can land at the airport because we have instrument landing systems and so on. So, you know, there's another economic impact to the city, to the health and well-being of the citizens of the city and the area in general. If that helicopter can't land, or even a fixed-wing aircraft, if we don't have that airport there, then we're looking, those people have to be transported either by ambulance, or they have to be transported to Spencer or Sioux City or someplace to get that medevac. So,
and inevitably, the services that we offer through that NGO side of things are very impacted as well. I don't know if you remember, was it a year ago, one of the helicopters hit a duck at night and busted the windshield out of that. We put a new windshield in it with them and got them inside to where they could work on it. I think it was pretty cold out there too. You know, but those kind of things that go hand in hand with those services of having somebody that can do those things, which you are starting to lose at a lot of smaller airports that those services and stuff are going away.
I'm kind of a airport snob. I thought, I'm annoyed by smaller airports because I believe that, you know, the wealthy people have them and we're spending all our money on that, when that's actually not the case. There is definite need in the city, and
It is an
I've learned a little bit
internet
about that.
connection. Their old saying was always, a mile of road will take you a mile of runway will take you anywhere. And that is very true. It's very hard for me to ask people as they come through, what are you doing here? You know, what are you with? It might be some attorney, it might be an electric, I don't know. And a lot of times they would tell me where to go if I did ask, you know? And so it's hard for me that way to get a number of what they're doing here in town.
Appreciate you guys.
You know, one other thing that hasn't been mentioned at all in economic impact is the agricultural spraying that gets done in the summertime. That's a huge number of acres that gets covered. And that's one of the reasons our fuel price or amount of fuel sold from one year to the next can vary, depends upon how much spraying has to go on or what might be going on in the crop plant.
Do we allow people to bring their own fuel onto our premise and fill?
We do. It's a slippery slope. I believe they say you cannot, I wouldn't know, but there are actions you can take to limit that, and some of those things that we have done that way. And I know it's been a big contention with a lot of ag operators that come in from Louisiana and Arkansas and those things that want to bring their own fuel, because it is drastically different pricing. And so you have to meet the certain criteria, show the city the certain insurances that go with that, and prove that it's going to be metered and pay that flowage fee that we would have gotten off of selling the fuel. You will also pay that off of your own fuel. So it's really no advantage to them to bring fuel. Because all it does is give them the liability of their fuel on the airport. But if they're buying it for the same price as they're bringing it on the airport, they don't incur any of the liability should something happen with it.
Yeah, the airport commission does have a policy that outlines the requirements to bring tanker fuel onto the property. And it outlines all the insurance requirements as well as passing inspection and preventing of backflow, plus the markup fees that are still acquired when they're brought on or taken on.
That's a good question though, Matt. So that flowage rate you mentioned, we do charge, if you bring a 10,000 gallon tanker of fuel on, which, you know, usually what they would bring if they're conducting like a transient spray operation, they pay a flowage rate of what our markup would be on that fuel.
This has been helpful, but I think we have several departments we need to get through.
Yep.
Vaughn? Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
appreciate
Thank
that.
you very much.
And by all means, you can always come out, ask questions, show you around.
We'll have a
see
field
what
trip
it's
soon.
about.
Yeah, we'll make a field trip.
When it's not doing this
Without snow.
without snow.
Thank you very much.
Just appreciate your time.
Good. Don't give me any sleep.
Nice nap. Thank you. I don't know where everybody found you.
So additional general fund operation is the transit system, so we do have $8,000 there. That transit system is the dollar coupons that are allowed to be picked up down, $2 coupons that are allowed to be picked up downstairs. And then those rides or cab systems, submit those invoices to the city, and the city pays for those. So there's cost for printing those and then costs associated with those actual.
Are they getting?
I was just gonna ask
They're getting used?
I haven't seen a report from any of the transit systems yet.
Okay.
Rides is normally waits till close to the end of the year, and so it's everything in one. So I just haven't seen that for this year yet. The other ones, I haven't received any. The other thing to note on the transit system, we provided an additional in-kind service for parking location and use the electricity out of the Crescent building as well.
Like the which building?
The old Crescent building.
Oh, sure.
Library?
Library.
Yes, the library. Well, we have, at least the trustees, about, I want to say last year or so, they did raise some fees on their resolution. Notably the meeting room and, I believe also, interlibrary loans. So they will be slated to look at more fees and, within about another year or so. And this is due to accreditation, so which is through the state library. As for the discretionary, at 51,500, yes, these are things that we do control. So in thinking about it, we have, the trustees in support have lowered the, let's see, that would be the continuing education. Most of that now at the state library is online. So that was cut down to about $500 just in case a trustee or a staff might need the gasoline to go to a meeting in Cherokee or Spencer. It would be strictly local.
Okay, anybody have any questions for?
What about in terms of personnel? Can there be any additional savings there?
Yeah, so the balanced budget that you have in front of, before you this evening, we have a reduction of hours from library staff for 2,080 hours this year, or in the year, and then materials. So that was a reduction of $37,000.
That's reflected on
And
here.
that's reflected in the budget in front of you, the numbers you have in front of you.
I think you do a lot with a little, and you offer, we get a lot of bang for your buck in our public library.
Well, we're very grateful to the Friends of the Library. It's very little money, but a bag of popcorn does go a long ways in a film showing, so it helps.
Yeah.
And that goes, looking at the programming, the focus was on children's programming and keeping that, versus the adult programming. So again, that's the proposed, library reductions.
I worry about older people because I think, recent situations show that we have some very isolated people. And I would like to, think that there's probably a lot of older people out there that are not always thought of. And I think they are thought of in your department, and I would like to continue as much services for older people as,
We'll try.
I think you do try a lot.
Anything else? Municipal band?
The only one that's voted on that we have to keep. It's a chuckle. Yeah, there's again, the non-discretionary is paying for the music, and the band members are paid as well.
Did you say we have to keep them?
Yes.
Because it was voted.
It was voted on back in the 20s, so if we don't want the band, it has to go back to a vote of the public.
Of the public, not the
Mhm.
council.
Not the council, no.
Hopefully it's just the Friesen estate.
We have no
No,
electricity.
no power out there.
Mm.
Okay,
Check.
Parks Department.
Well, we don't make a lot of revenues on parks.
I gathered.
You know what? I'm happy that we're just hoping to break 500.
Where did that revenue come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poison's awful public property, awful parks.
Yeah.
Squirrel petting zoo.
I don't know, insurance would eat that up.
Yeah, well,
I don't know.
I would carry it up in the line.
Yeah. So with the combined parks department and street department, I know we're gonna get into the road use here, but since we're talking, the proposed budget does include not filling 2 positions. So, of people leaving, retirement, whatever reason, but yeah, so there would be two individuals that would not be hired back. I know you have your hours, you calculate every single hour, really every minute that your staff does, so we have a really good idea of where each person is every minute of the day. Well, yes. Mhm.
And what's the discretionary funding in that?
So there's $6,000 worth of dock installation, $8,000 of contractual services, $7,000 of supplies, and $5,000 of seating. It does include cuts to portable toilet rentals throughout the parks of $25,000. The kayak, bike, recreational rental equipment for $15,000 as well.
It's disappointing. It is.
Which one?
The kayaks, I think.
Oh, I thought you were talking about portable.
I think,
Could we not have kept them by just raising the rental
I was
fee?
just gonna say, what did we get back on those last year, revenue wise?
So last year, I think it was like $6,000. I did ask them to come before finding out that we'd have to make these cuts, to come back with a quote for this year, but also maybe to look at adding like the stand-up paddle boards, which are definitely more enticing for people to see if that may, so we can still get the numbers, but I mean, we understand, obviously we're sad about that, but these are decisions that have to be made. We can still get the numbers and see, and if we think that there might be an increase, or maybe we can cut back the number of them and get lower numbers, I'll go back to them and see what they say.
Well, how much did it cost to rent them?
So we decided 2 years ago to make it pretty minimal to encourage people. So the bikes themselves were $5 for a half an hour. The kayaks were $15 for 30 minutes, and then $25 for an hour, which an hour of kayaking is kind of a long time, but most people realize.
I would explore instead of just cutting it, seeing if you can raise the prices and make
Especially
it self-sufficient.
particularly, I think the kayaks.
Yeah, kayaks, for
We're
sure.
after recreation, I hate to
Oh,
see it.
yeah.
This is so
right.
beautiful.
Bikes, they could do lakeshore side, I mean, we got
Sure.
some source of that, but kayaks, we don't.
And
Yeah.
maybe this is completely off, but if there's a way we could partner with BBU's,
Outdoor rec.
outdoor rec program, I don't know how much,
So when I first looked into this, I did reach out to see if they wanted to co-op, but they have their own that they use for their students that they offer at no charge, so.
right, but it's summer and there's no kids, so I was just wondering if they'd like to share.
Yeah.
Out of
I-
that $25, how much is ours and how much it goes back to?
All of it,
All of that is ours?
yes. That's all.
I'd like to see.
So
us
how
see
much
if
we
can-
paid the company for them then?
The contract.
Was $6,000? Was that
Was it?
$45,000?
But last year included the new cage and all of that, and then they carry the liability insurance, so that's why I asked them to give us a new quote this year.
What did you say that revenue was last year?
It was minimal.
But it was minimal because of usage or minimal because we didn't charge enough?
Well, I think usage was down last year, I think, compared to year one, for sure. So we talked about whether or not the design of what they put out there on the beach was a challenge. We tried to add the QR, we added the QR code so it was available in different languages for the DNR as well, to try to increase the ability for other people to learn. So we looked at quite a few options. I do think, we talked about adding this year see-through panels, like the page, so you can see math into it too. And again, changing the things that are a little bit more popular, maybe the stand-up paddle.
Matt is right, though, it wasn't a great kayak. It was
Right, weather wasn't, I mean, it never really was very warm for long
Yeah.
periods
with
of time.
shorter periods of,
Yeah.
Yeah, and when it's windy, it's tough.
It's-
Right.
yeah, and we had
So
We had a lot of
you
wind,
got
too.
safety, so,
Yeah, I'd look into it.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
And I think the rates are cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you could do $25 for half an hour pretty easily and not have anybody.
I agree. I mean, I live here, I don't have a kayak, and I would go and rent this if I ever had time, but
Did you rent one this year?
Huh?
Did you rent one this year?
I didn't this year. But, you know, I think there's a lot of people who live in town who would, and knowing it's available. And then maybe it's also realizing that it's not just for people staying at Kings Point, maybe broader marketing of it, but.
definitely. Yeah, we can, I'll definitely go back to the.
Lines up with our goals.
Proposal.
Instead of it just being an amenity for people that are staying there, that it's a
Right.
community.
And I think a lot of people think that's what it is.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, since our parks guy left, I think we're done then with parking. Is that how that works?
You know, and looking at.
Would've left a couple hours ago, huh?
And so the portable toilets at 25,000, we're looking at, I mean, it was $700 a month to rent a toilet. And so it did add up. So they're looking at different types of options of making permanent. Yes. May not look like the one in Frankstar Park or Chautauqua, but it would be a more permanent structure for a bathroom.
Well, and they got a grant this year for
Right.
one, so.
Mhm. Yeah, and we're gonna see how that one works, and then.
Yeah, exactly, we
Right.
can see how it
Right.
plays out.
Okay. Golf course.
Golf course.
So the golf course is a little bit unique. You have both that inside management, and that's with SNL Properties, who manage the inside, and then you have the operations that are outside of the property. So the total golf course expense are split up between the management contract and then the actual operating expense for the outside. So for the outside use, there's $198,000 total. $41,000 for payroll, $41,000 for non-discretionary. Those are due to splits for those public services employees out there. So of those, discretionary, $30,000, there's $20,000 for contractual services. That's for outside services to be able to come in and assist with the facility itself and the grounds and maintenance. There's $3,000 for supplies, $1,000 for new garbage cans, $4,000 for a power washer, and $1,000 for rock is what makes up that total $30,000. And then approved in the CIP is $85,000 for new mower.
Are those figures pretty much what it was last year then, or is there?
For the outside services, yeah. You know, the big difference, the way it works is high, so payroll reallocation, getting that person allocated correctly. It was being allocated previously a little bit different, so that one's a little bit up. And then the other one is the capital for the $85,000, but again, that's funded by local option sales tax. That'll supplement that portion of it, so the outside weighs right around that $80,000 to $90,000 loss. The difference is made up by the inside.
Is Keaton still gonna be there
Yes.
next summer?
Yes. I have to pick him up every day to bring him to work.
He wanted to be here tonight, but he had other
He's coaching,
obligations.
that's what it's like.
So from that management contract, and obviously SNL and Amy are here to ask any questions. Their revenue generation is $247,000 with the expense of $207,000. So we'd be looking right around hopefully that $40,000 to $60,000 loss per year, depending upon those revenue generations again. And then they did outline and identify some rate changes and the fee proposal for the golf
Let me sit by Chris in case I need any protection.
From me?
No.
Well, you
know, Dave. You're my emotional support, Dave. So since I started at Kings Point, this will be my 5th summer. It's hard to believe because I came in July of '21. We have not really touched the fees at the golf course. We did offer a discounted rate at one point in time. We changed the fee structure for the tournaments, which has been well received on that side of it. But we did feel that, especially with the increased costs in fuel, labor, and so on, we also, due to the high demand, added additional golf carts to our contract, and those have been successfully selling out every weekend. So we did feel that there was some opportunity to look at some minimal fee increases for the golf course to help make up some of that gap in there. And then, Tyler, do I have to come before them in a separate one to ask for the special? Okay, yeah.
We
I
talking
sure
about
can.
golf course fees right now?
I'm sorry, Kevin?
Are we talking about the fees for the golf course now, or?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I guess I'd like to bring up that junior season pass, jumping that from 50 to 75. I just soon see younger kids maybe get involved with it without a higher rate there.
So do those increased rates meet the statement in your budget memo of increasing revenues by 15%?
Yes. And one of the other things that we think would be a really successful offering this year to add new members would be to offer, if you were not a member for last year, that if a member refers you, so if I bring my friend who's not been a member for the last year, they come and join, we would both get $50 off of our membership. So we think it would be enticing to get additional golfers out there and to help grow, and then hopefully they'll sign up for league and a lot of the tournaments. We also have a lot of tournaments planned for this season as
I
well.
wonder if Kevin doesn't make a point though for kids to try to get children out on the thing. If there's any way we could partner with Joe Cucetta and see if there's any money that.
Yep.
Well, so we partnered with him, even through the first tee, to set up and implement a junior golf program out of Storm like that. We originally had many years ago, and it kind of went to the wayside, and we kind of just brought it back through the partnerships that we've had. But we do currently work with Joe to be able to offer that junior golf program.
How many junior season passes were sold?
Question.
I can't believe that there's that many.
Let's go up. I can tell you here. So the junior season passes, we sold 16.
So many of them may play under the family season pass.
Correct. There were 28 family season pass and 88 single season pass last year.
So I know that Joe in the past is, if kids don't have money to play softball or baseball, there's always a way to figure those things out. This is kind of an awful lot more than that, but I don't know if there's.
Well, and we have talked to Joe about partnering together this year, maybe something a little different than the first tee, but doing something a little bit more localized to be able to reach some more. So it's definitely been a conversation that we're having. I guess we haven't run into a hardship, but I guess these numbers were put out as starting points, and we could talk about what we feel is
I'm fine
comfortable
with
with.
them. I do wonder though, like when we do when we do the sale for the water park passes, one-day sale come in, could you do a one-day sale for the junior passes at a reduced fee and then go back to this suggested fee?
Absolutely.
And
We
maybe
could
it would
even offer.
increase some
Yeah.
people into doing it too, so.
I think we have to just remember too that some of them might just be under the family season pass, but
Yeah.
instead of just saying, no, we're not gonna raise the rate, do that special sale, and then after that date, then it goes to this suggested.
For ease of everything, we could combine it with the other sale and just do it for the month of April to give everybody the opportunity to get signed up.
Are we doing a sale on all passes?
Well, that's would be my proposal, is to come to you guys to ask for this refer a member, and both of the two people getting that $50 discount. We figured that would be for the pre-sale, which is the March 22nd weekend, and then also for the month of April, just to give people a good enough opportunity to get their membership. So we would be happy to offer that to the juniors for sure. The more that are out there, the more fall in love with it.
Your off-season cart storage, we just never do that before?
So, no, it's, I guess, and Tyler would be a better knowledge on that. So they've been purchasing the annual season pass and then storing it over the winter with us. So, evidently.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
That's a big thing for Maggie, yeah, no.
There's never been, I guess, clear language about your, because I believe previously fee resolution said annual cart lease.
Versus season.
Versus seasonal. So, that's kind of where many of those who had their own cart is always operating state a member out there. Or
How many
a
do you
pass
think
holder
you
out there.
have? Do you have very many that park there?
I believe we had 6 last season, but
I just wondered.
I'm sure Brandon could fill it with something over there if it was
Already
open,
did.
right? Oh. So we had 7 gas and, well, 5, no, so we had more than that. We had 12 electric and 7 gas. Now, not all of those people do store in the winter. Some of them do take it to their own, yeah. But, yeah.
I think there should be, for sure.
And now just going back to, that kind of incentive in the pre-sale that we're trying to do. So sure, the goal is to get more people out there too, just like the kids and everything else too. And the whole point of the junior golf program is to get golf reestablished and working with our partners to do that. The other thing is the value added benefit of the reciprocal policy that comes with it. So we just got that, so that'll actually come before council too at the March 17th meeting. So there's 50 some courses in, and I think at the end of the year last year, where these people are able to come to our course, and like Amy mentioned, it's obviously working because we're having more carts and more traction on the weekends.
Yeah. The reciprocal was extremely popular at our course because we were not tournament heavy. So you could actually come and get out on the course. So a lot of people were coming from other courses to do that. And so we found, and those people without hesitation were buying, a bag of beer and teas and whatever else and heading out. So it was a really good addition for us.
Walking through the parking lot, there's people from all over the place.
Mhm.
Come to our golf.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Golf course.
Yeah. Our grounds crew does an amazing job out there taking care of
Now,
that
if we
for
just
us,
get
yeah.
rain all season long.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Well, that's kind of hard, because most of the time we're asking for rain.
But not if we're kayaking, because then we don't want rain.
No, that's
Or
what I mean.
water parking, right?
I want to have rain, so I want to have rain, so keep the course great.
Just at the golf course, yeah.
Yeah, I think these are reasonable.
Yeah, you don't even want to know what I was paying 18 holes of golf over the last month. Not in this range.
Yeah. I definitely have people feel that it's a good bargain for what they get out there, definitely.
Well, Amy just go ahead and sit up here because we're going to go through, because you'll have to come back in a few minutes anyway.
Okay.
So community education, we have a 28E agreement with the school district. And that number is either we renegotiate that 28E agreement, or we continue to pay the salary for the community education employees. We're on community education. I skipped campground. Ha. We go back to our original worksheet. General fund and special revenues. And just in case my battery's really low, so. Oh, good point, number of the pages. Always can improve. So we have our campgrounds.
So go back to the community education, because I was looking for the page while you were talking.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I skipped campground, so, but community education is, we have a 28E agreement with the school district to provide recreation events. So basically what it is paying salaries.
Do we pay all the salaries?
No,
or
it's just a portion, no, it's shared.
It's 50/50
Yeah.
of the costs
for the director and 2 support staff? Does he have 2 FTEs?
No, he's going to get
One.
one at the most.
Yeah.
If he's lucky. I think he's got one right now that's
Yeah.
there on a pretty regular basis.
Yep. Okay, so moving up one, we'll just go to the campground.
So just back to community ed. So that is for all expenses there then? Is that-
double check the report.
'Cause that's
I think it is the expense. Operating expenses.
Okay, because that, it can't be just salaries. Because that'd be $230, 230,000, and there's not $230,000 worth of salary going through there. Yeah.
Unless they pay like.
I know he doesn't get paid enough
No,
for the hours he
yeah.
puts in.
Yeah, so I wonder what else that would be.
But it's gotta be something else involved.
Yeah, like the umpire fee or something.
Campground, really, it's pretty self-sustaining. We're not requesting any campground fee changes. I think the important thing to note, which we find very fascinating, is most of our campground attendees are within, a 20-mile radius of Storm Lake.
I read that in something you gave us. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
weird.
That's just again, when you start drilling down and getting information, it's fascinating what you find out.
It's just payroll.
I thought it was just payroll, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless we're paying, that as officials? Or
Yeah, you're paying part of the, yeah, you're paying the benefits. Yeah, you're paying the benefits and everything too.
Okay, yeah.
It's 50, yeah.
I don't know.
But that's a, yeah,
What's the non-discretionary?
it's about a, it's about
I'm still on
190.
community ed. I'm still trying to understand.
You say that's just.
So we're contractually obligated right now.
Right, so the
So it's-
115,000 is salary,
Yeah,
Yeah.
And what, so then you have non-discretionary
Because
expenses.
it's, I classified it as non-discretionary because it's a contract. You're
Okay.
contractually obligated, so you don't have the discretion to control those costs.
Okay, gotcha.
I'd kinda like to see what that is,
Yeah, it would be good.
just because I know there's not a lot of employees, and
If we can just get
that's a
what
lot of.
makes that total.
Yep.
Give
With
how
benefits.
much each person makes, but I just wonder.
The school's doing their budget at the same time, so I will tell you that I just do a guesstimate.
Right.
Basically 115,000, maybe a little shy of what the school actually approves.
Sure.
But then it's 50% of the actual. Sure. So when they produce their budget, we can get it for community ed and show our portion.
Yeah, we just don't know what their, you know, if there's employment raises or any training, stuff like that, so.
Right.
So it goes into employment costs.
Employment costs, yeah.
Campground, now that we're to campground,
Yeah, we went up to camp, yeah.
the revenues over expenses, what, that 28,000 or whatever, where does that go? I mean, does that stay in a campground fund, or,
So that's part of the general fund.
It
so
goes
it's-
into the
it's
general.
included in those charges for service and help fund all general fund operations,
okay.
primarily recreation.
Were there any cuts there?
Mm-mm.
And we're not looking at any fee increases.
Nope, we are not changing, yeah, there's no, the year's already started, we've taken, yeah.
I hear you sold out quite a.
Yes, it has, yeah, so, and again, maybe next year it could be a consideration, but for this fiscal, for,
No, I was.
kind of,
Did
this
we do
upcoming
fee
fiscal.
changes last year?
We did.
It was nominal, I think it was $1.
Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah, but, you know.
I always like to tease Tyler and tell him it subsidizes his golf course.
There's my 30,000.
Yeah, it'd be nice if you get the golf course to break even sometime.
Shelter house. Shelter house makes money.
What is the rates on shelter house? I mean,
It's 150 per side.
we just raised that, right?
Right. With a $200
A
deposit, I believe,
Which is a little higher.
which is a little bit higher, yeah.
And that's how long, when you rent it for
The
full day or
just
4
the day.
hours or?
Just, it's a day. And there's 2 sides, so potentially you could have, that's $300. Sometimes, like, sometimes in the summer you have your,
So somebody's renting it just for the evening?
still 150.
Okay.
But it has to sit empty all day until they come to do the evening. Can't have more than one event in a Saturday.
Cleaning
Complicated.
is could be the complication, because not everybody leaves it the same way they find it. I say it.
So you don't book 2 in a day,
No. Mm-mm.
I guess. is
One
what
on
it
each
is.
side, yes, but yeah, no, not 2 events in a day. And a lot of times you have, they want the entire day, they're decorating and, you know, you have your birthday parties, your graduations, you know, baby showers.
Or shelter. Store.
Yes.
Just so it is noted, they get it from 8 a.m. until 10 p.m.
Oh,
They do need to be in there at a certain time to allow staff time to get them cleaning out of there by a specific time as to be out of the public park.
Okay.
Economic development, personnel, non-discretionary, discretionary. We have the, all of the memberships such as Storm Lake United, Iowa Lakes Corridor,
Hometown Pride.
Hometown Pride, the
Northwest Iowa.
Northwest Iowa Plan. I always get them wrong.
Sorry.
Northwest Iowa Planning Development Commission.
What is that total, Lee? Does that total most of the 72,000 then?
Yes, that is
That is,
that's the total of those.
so I can't find any other discretionary funds.
Well, I know you're going after me, and I'm like, I don't know where he's gonna go, but.
I was just using that as an
I don't
example.
remember to interject, but there's $5,000 worth of office
Twice.
supplies.
And
Is that in there?
Get rid of the office supplies.
I can get one pencil, one pen.
So that's the, so for Storm Lake United, that's the 20,000.
Right.
For membership, yes.
Right.
So have there been any cuts in this department? In this budget?
Oh, no, not in this particular one, no.
Is that discretionary amount?
Well, I guess, let me take that back. Yes, we did. We did take out the economic development incentives for like the driveways and curb stops. So yes, there was.
That you didn't see any usage, right?
We did see usage. Mhm.
So that was cost share saving.
Yes, that was a part of the cost savings, yes. And that varies because you don't know, like, how many did you do last year? You probably did 10 to 12 last year, and it's mostly in-kind services, but if you're moving your people and not replacing them, they're not going to be able to do other things. So you have the same amount of, you have people who have to do other duties, may not be able to focus on that, so.
The discretionary amount's basically the same as it was last year then.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And what's
Well-
under capital?
Because none of those would have went up.
and the hometown is.
What's
what?
capital?
It was
The hometown is new in that?
Downtown.
Downtown
Lake signs.
We
signs.
didn't have it in this year?
This is, isn't that new, the
Mhm.
new membership is with the Iowa, or the hometown?
Hometown Pride?
Hometown Pride.
Did we have that in this fiscal year though?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
So it would,
This fiscal year and next fiscal year, so the next 5 years we're committed, so.
right, so this isn't an increase over what we had this fiscal year because it would have been included in that.
That's,
I don't think we were in the hometown pride agreement until we were already in this fiscal year,
Oh.
so it would be higher.
Okay.
But we're contractually obligated again for
Okay.
5 years.
And then you have mayor, council, administration.
I want to know which part of that $1 million is my part of the expense.
your golf fees.
I should at least get a golf membership for all the money.
Maybe there's a reciprocal one.
So I do have a question. It's going to sound strange. Of course, most of my questions are strange, but how much does it cost to pay the city council annually?
Nida, you
Not
do
much.
payroll, it's not much. It's what,
3,600 for me.
1,200 a year, or 3,600.
I'm 3,600.
You're 3,600,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
That's why-
1,200 a year.
That's why I went mayor, so I got a pay raise.
And you get paid, and the council gets paid quarterly, so.
Yeah, and what's our total for, so 36 for mayor and what for us?
16.
Is it 16? Okay.
That was a volunteer job.
I did too.
400 every quarter, okay.
And can council members decline that pay?
I've never had that question, I would presume so.
What?
I've had some council members donate it to a certain agency, like within like a, what was it, the flower, we called it the flower fund. I'm looking at Dave because you were at that one too, and
In a different life.
in different like. But you guys get to determine what you do with money in the budget.
Lots of donation places.
So. Personnel, non-discretionary, oh, and then the outside agent, oh, my battery's dying, okay. And then the outside agency, funding requests all come from this fund as well.
What else is in the discretionary?
In discretionary.
Yes. Besides outside agencies.
$650 for contractual services, $3,500 for supplies, $50,000 for Kids Fest. And $3,800 for breakfast with Santa.
Those are daggers looking at.
And what about,
Okay, there's
The
nothing
rest is
there,
the
there's
outside.
nothing there to cut, to add, to,
Sandwich.
to add to
it was the
the,
Grinch who put us over.
to add to the, outside agency
Capital?
funding.
What comes under capital budget for city council?
That is the potential for land acquisition and tuck cleaning. Tuck pointing on the building, we're gonna partner with the library, do their building maintenance at the same time.
Outside agency funding will skip still. Go to cottages. Woohoo. They make money.
Yeah, and the furniture is all in really great shape. We've just gotta do some more of the, basic housewares and whatnot, but it's really low maintenance for us, which is
They're
great.
getting pretty well booked for the summer.
Yeah, definitely. I had to look, I didn't have a single weekend where we had cottages available. It's all weekdays now. Good stuff.
Okay, outdoor water park?
Yep, outdoor water park. They never make money.
It's your municipal pool,
Yeah.
let's just be clear.
I know, I was gonna say, they always,
It's a
No.
municipal
Yeah.
pool, and I don't think there's one across the state that makes money.
Well, I should say they make money, they just don't break even. Maybe that's a better way of explaining it.
There are revenues, you just don't.
You just,
That's a unique economic view.
yes.
Yes. From a business standpoint, that doesn't make much sense.
Are we talking about the fees for the outdoor water park yet, or what?
Yeah, we're gonna start right now.
Okay.
I was more pleased this summer in the service out there. That just the attention of the lifeguards, the kindness of the people that were working at the gates, and it just seemed,
Well,
a little, just higher caliber.
I was out there once with grandkids and it
Yeah.
was, the lifeguards are right on top of everything. And
yeah. So when we looked at the budgets, obviously that's the hardest part, right? We don't run a fat budget, we don't have it, but we knew there were certain things we can't compromise on, and the safety of the people, and then the staffing obviously are two of our biggest. Water's gonna go up, chemicals, all those things haven't gotten any cheaper, obviously, so, we think that there haven't been increases in the prices of admissions for a very, very long time. My understanding is, I'm not even sure, 2013, yeah, for the last increases. So we did do some price comparisons. Obviously, what we offer is a little different than most of these places. Our closest competitor has a lot of private investment in their community, paying for a lot of their stuff. So we think that we, especially with all of the improvements, which we are so glad that you noticed, because our team has been working really hard on that, that we're just gonna have to do some increases. But we feel like what they get for that is incredible. I mean, to access to 2 water parks. We keep our pools and water parks open longer than most of the other local area pools. When we looked, most of them were, some of them were, 4 hours a day, whereas we're getting a lot more in our day. So, yeah, it's definitely been, but we were, again, when this team, we did not have, and I don't like to say these things out loud because we're getting ready to go into the new one, but we did not have a single ambulance come to take off anybody out of there. Our lifeguards were really watching the waters and taking care of everybody. It was amazing this year.
I have some comments about the fee resolutions.
Okay, Kevin, what's that?
Well, the 0 to 3, one thing in the first section doesn't include the four-year-olds, but anyway, I think anybody 4 and under, we need to try and make this pool affordable for our families and stuff, whatever. And I know it's only $2 we're charging for 0 to 3-year-olds, but I think we need to keep that back at free. The BV Child Residential Daily Pass, $5 to $8. That's gonna be a big increase for some of these kids that are having a hard time even getting there on the $5 fee and stuff. And I guess my last comment is that, again, I'd like to see the 0 to 4 to be free, but the landlubber's fee going from $5 to $8, for a parent that's just gonna go in and watch their kids, I think that's a little high for, I can see the $5, but $8 to go in there and sit there, I personally think that's too much, so. I wanna make sure we keep it affordable for our local kids to be able to go there and enjoy the park.
Understandable. I will say that we did look at several other pools, and most of them were charging a smaller fee, a $2 or $3 for the unders. There are definitely a few, again, Sioux Rapids, but they have a lot more funding. They were 2 and under. The majority of our code blues are all the 3 and unders, which is a chemical cleanup on lap lane 3. And that shuts down the water park and so on during that time, so there is some cost involved. The landlubbers, I mean, I feel like even again for $8, a lot of places don't offer that. And we have several that will then dip their feet in the pool and kind of extend, and they're taking up a lawn chair and so on, so I feel like, but again, it's up to council. We are gonna have to come up with some ways. And
With the landlubber rate, I definitely like to say with, there's a lot of people that just come in to sunbathe, and they do take up a chair, they take up a lot of room as well with, like, say there's a couple people that just wanna come in and sunbathe, and sometimes we have families, like we have about 3 people to a chair because it's where they put their stuff. And necessarily they just need a place to put their stuff where it's not being stepped on or getting wet. So definitely, like, there's a lot of sunbathers that will I'd say, pay the price. Other than that, thankfully, people that are just watching their grandchildren as well, they're in the water with their grandchildren, so we've seen a big difference, especially that we've made sure that they're being supervised. And that's something that we want is kids that are being supervised, but mainly I do see it's a lot of sunbathing they're taking up our lawn chairs as well.
Sure, they're using a facility.
Yes.
And
They use a
I do
facility.
notice that there is, maybe that is some of the service as well as insisting on supervision of children by the parents, or by some little children, not big old. So maybe that's helped.
How do you decide, just saying that about sunbathing, how do you decide if somebody's a landlubber or,
they get a different wristband.
I mean, but how do you know that somebody comes in? Do they tell you that I'm not gonna get in the water, and then,
Yes.
and then you just take them at their word that they're not gonna get in the water, they're not gonna
Yes, so, given we usually check them if, like, they don't have a wristband or they do have a wristband, and the wristbands are significantly different. This last year, we used a lot of the wristbands that are really shiny, or they're rainbow
Okay.
colored, so
I
they
just,
would.
in my own mind, I just think that would be a logistical nightmare trying to decide
It's
who
not
is,
fun, yeah.
who is taking advantage of that.
They
and who
can
is-
say they're gonna do
Yeah.
that, but then they just go
Our-
into the pool anyway.
Yeah, our slide attendants are,
And even
they
if they are
watch
there,
for it.
That was my only question, is I didn't know, the wristbands I can understand, but I was just thinking, how does anybody walk around and decide who's,
Yeah, and then there's times where it gets hot and they want to dip in and come back out, and even then, we still lose water, and people just dipping in and coming out, and that's something that we were running into with our water shortage, is people coming out of the water and dragging that water out.
And it comes down to just empowering the team that works there to, just like no carry-ins, right? That's a big push that we have to make so we can make concessions revenue. We have to empower the team. If they see that someone in the water with that wristband that says they can't be in the water, we have to enforce that.
We do have other options. We have a beach,
Correct.
we have a beautiful park, and there's no fee for those. So it's not like we're denying people access to sun.
When it comes out.
When it comes out. When it comes out, fine. So I mean, we do have a Parks Department keeps our beaches looking pretty.
I'm fine with the fees recommended.
Well, and I've seen people that come in with the landlubbers one, they sit in the sun and then they go take a shower and, on and on, and so, to me,
that's
it's
what I just was having a difficult time, if it was me trying to figure out
It's a lot.
who is actually swimming and who is just sitting on the
So you'll
side.
just need to add 4-year-olds in here, because it says 0 to 3,
Yeah.
and then 5 to 12, 5 to 11.
Yeah, yeah.
Or we just don't have 4-year-olds.
Oh,
okay, type
out. No 4-year-olds allowed.
And the mayor is not gonna be a lifeguard, because he can't tell the difference between the mayor.
Yeah, we'll make you a slide it
The
down.
landlubber's fee, I can understand, and I can see where you're coming from on that. But I still think the 0 to 4-year-olds, we need to make it affordable for these families.
Hurry up, let's go. Next.
So one.
Well, do we have
Okay.
do we have
Do we have
consensus
a-
on the, I mean, I know I have, was the 3 and.
Councilperson McKinney, does the 4, is the 4 supposed to go up instead of 5 or instead of 3? Like, is it children age 0 to 4 standard, or
Should be. So most of the ones like Sioux Rapids, Tsunami is 2 and under, Cherokee is 2 and under, Ida Grove is 3 and under, again, these are $2 fees. Denison has a 5 and under, and,
for free, or for, is there a fee?
well, there were fees associated with, Ida Grove, and Sioux Rapids, and then Alta doesn't have one, Spencer does not do a free, and then Fort Dodge has a $2 as well for the.
Spencer does not do a free, so they
Mhm.
charge?
Yep, they have a
Yeah,
child swimmer
part
for
is there is
5.
more supervision of people 4 and under, I mean, so there's.
So now with the kiddie fort that we have, that's absolutely, like, now we have it renovated, there's a lot of little ones that are there, because it's a 0 depth. A lot of pools don't have that. There's probably Fort Dodge that does have the 0 depth, and it gradually goes in, and that's the most used. And that's that's something that we have to cover, and the more people in a certain area, we have to supply more guards as well, and more staff.
Yeah, that's got a few hidden spots that we
And
have to
there's-
have a
yeah.
lot more walk routes on, and.
No travel, we're stuck here.
I got food.
Just
So,
special
I'm still waiting on
outside,
travel.
outside of Councilperson McKinney, who else, are we good with?
I'm good with what's been
I'm
proposed.
good with it,
I think it's fine, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
One thing that we did not have was the twilight pricing was not on our website, and it wasn't on the city one, so we have not been offering it for the last, because a bulk of our people do come at 3 o'clock to swim, and we're up until 7 or 8, so that's a pretty good chunk at that, so I don't know if we want to just go ahead and not.
I would get rid of it as long as there wasn't, I mean, until somebody starts asking why we don't have it again, I think.
Okay.
Did you say it's on the website?
It's not, it's not, so yeah, it was
And it
kind
still
of.
takes the same amount of people.
Yeah.
Use the same
Yes.
amount of water.
And we're open at noon, and then by 3 o'clock.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Okay.
Now budget.
Take care of it.
Any
Franchise
other
fees.
questions on,
Actually, I can go with
any other questions on the pool?
The only comment that I'll make on that, it is a pool and we'll lose dollars, so the only thing that can supplement your pool is, your franchise fees. Or, excuse me, not franchise, your general fund, excuse me. So I know it's brought to your attention, we're not increasing rates the way that we have been, that losses just continue to compound there. So to avoid those issues, like the need for consideration and changes to the fees, you're trying to get to a break even at least, but I understand the concern about keeping it affordable, so there's some give there. But knowing that the reduction in general funds, if you're gonna continue to lose more at the water park, excuse me, you're gonna be allocating funds away from those other departments.
So the loss of revenue between golf course and water park, that gets picked up by,
The general fund.
which doesn't have any money in it, so, so does that, like the campground excess, is that,
More pressure on
does
the
that,
campground.
does that, I mean, does that,
You budget for the loss.
you budget for the
You
loss?
budget for the loss. Yes. Now, if the loss is more than that, then it's a different, discussion that we have, but we're budgeting for the loss. We know it's not gonna be self-sustaining. We know the golf course isn't either. Yes, that's why the cottages and the campground supplement.
I wanna build more cottages.
But those
The
are so
price is
expensive.
tripled now, yeah, we looked into that.
But no, that's what
Yours.
we, again, when we look at properly managing your budget, we plan for that.
And probably tournaments at the golf course probably help revenue.
They do.
Yep.
That flat fee, like she mentioned, for the golf course, that's gone over well.
Has it?
Yeah,
Good.
Just like
yeah,
your tournaments.
yeah. That's the way to go.
Okay,
Lots of units.
So the remainder of the items in here are just kind of our special revenues. So the franchise fees is a 5% fee imposed on gas and electric utilities.
Why don't we go to get the outside agency done
Yes.
now before we go through?
Because
Everything else is just the explanation.
Yep, and then we just have road use fund, really quick here. That was under the, yep, it was under the airport manager's information, so while you get prepared for the outside agency funding, Tyler, you can go quickly over. That is, what funds the street, our street repairs, which again, we don't have, it's your gas tax that funds this. And so what we're seeing is a trend of less gas being used. So your road use tax may not, it's allocated by the state of Iowa, so it's usually a per capita basis. And so really your road use fund right now is $250,000 for seal coating and crack sealing, which is approved in the CIP, your insurance, and people to fix potholes, people to plow roads. And so we're gonna have a, not this year, we're fine this year, we're operating at our 40% fund balance. But let's see here, our per capita forecast is $139.50. I'm gonna go back to the census. This is why it's so important to have an accurate count, because it's a per capita allocation. So if we have a wrong census count, we get a wrong amount of allocation. So we are at 2025, halfway through to the next census. So, you know, again, we hit it pretty hard, and we had a really good process to get people counted. Our staff was at every single place they could be, but COVID hit. And then there was a change there. So, you know, I had hoped that we were going to have an accurate count this year, but unfortunately, or not this year, but in 2020, but it is what it is right now. So 2030, we're going to have a pretty hard discussion on that, because we want those numbers to be accurate.
And not just for
What are you
this,
laughing?
lots and lots of places.
What are you guys laughing at? Okay, so any questions on road use tax? I mean, we got Brandon here. We'll probably see tomorrow what happens with road use tax. All night long, yeah.
Do outside.
No, let's go back to, yeah, we can go back to outside
Okay,
agency, because that would be the
outside
pretty much last thing,
agencies.
yeah. So,
I think.
So-
Pretty much imagine the possibilities is a go.
so would it be easier if Tyler just read you what the average was for each
Yes.
one? So,
So the average of what was collected, without Councilperson Martinez and Rick lifts, so those are just assumed at zero. Salute was $1,500. Historical Society was $750. Ready, Set, Grow at $1,250. Winter Gallery at $6,100. Upper Des Moines at $10,300. Lake Preservation Association $1,600, and SLU $24,100. The average total right now is $49,033.
Well, one thing I would say, Lake Preservation Association, if $1,600 isn't gonna do anything, it either needs to be the whole amount or nothing. I mean,
And it was given way late.
yeah, no, I agree. I'm not pushing that, but I'm saying
I agree.
to divvy that up, yeah, to divvy that up,
That's gonna do nothing.
that needs to be, if there's a grant or something, maybe somewhere to work on that. Or it's gonna just need to be waited a year?
I would say the recommendation would be to put it in the CIP for the following
Yeah.
fiscal
I
year.
mean, usually
where
that's
you
what
can
it's in,
plan for it.
is
It
in a
just-
CIP.
It is, but it came
Yeah.
late, the request came.
So I would disregard that one. Well, let's start,
Can you
I
show
guess,
those
start
up
with,
on
let's start with Salute. Conversation on,
I believe they need to raise another.
I mean,
think
I can see part of,
It's good, it's
I can
noble.
see part of the interpreter part of it, as long, my questions was, do the interpreters help the city with interpreting? Or do they help the hospital, or should there be, if the when somebody, I don't know, Maria, maybe you know, when they
I
go
think
through
it will
those
help
interpreter
to- I
classes,
think it-
where do they go?
I think it will help to get an employee that is qualified to do the services, because previously from this program, we had a lot of unqualified individuals interpreting in our community, and I think right now they're preparing the students, the young individuals, to be prepared for a job, whether if it is after school, part-time, or whatever. So they're out there in the community doing that once they go through that training.
I thought this was for medical interpreting, your application, was it?
I think it's just general.
Was it general? I also, because they've done medical.
And on the.
They have focus, there's a focus in medical, there's a focus in just general as well, yeah.
I also believe employers
That's what
see
was
the
my
importance
point.
of it, that
If these people were coming out, and to use the hospital as an example, if they happen to be doing the interpretation at the hospital should be funding part of that, in my mind.
School district.
Or the school, whoever
the
the job,
banks or
yeah,
whatever.
whoever are utilizing those services. I don't know where the city should be doing the whole amount, at least to be providing for other businesses.
So my
But-
thought on a lot of these is, and it's not on the form specifically, but I would like, and it's too late now, but the way I think about this is this should be an in-kind grant. What are they gonna raise through fundraising, and can we match it?
Well, they have on their application, they do have on their application if they're raising money and how they're raising money. It is on the
Is it
application.
specific about fundraising?
Yeah.
Because when we talked about it the other day, I didn't think you said it was.
Not
I
specific
don't
to
think
what
it says
the
fundraising.
service is, like, if I want to buy the
Right.
interpreting class, are they raising another $5,000 or $2,500 to meet it? I don't know.
So
if it's
like
that.
Salute, because I asked this question of Salute, and they have not done fundraising. They have been very successful. They contribute to this community, there's no doubt about this. And they're very good at getting grants, but they've not done fundraising. So, whereas Witter Gallery does, they probably can do more. Ready, Set, Grow said that in their presentation that they were getting ready to do a capital campaign and do fundraising. I think that's really important. But I did put in my worksheet, and then I thought about it, but if we are losing positions through attrition because our budget is so tight, this is not where I want to put the money.
I was gonna say, on Ready, Set, Grow, we did receive the information that was requested, and it was for purchase and remodel of.
Tear down a wall or something like that.
Right. Now, according to our interpretation, I guess, with the Secretary of the Auditor, I guess, those funds can't be used for items like that. Our city dollars can't be used for that.
When I read that, I
yeah.
wondered if that was, that's why I did put it down.
It's very specific.
It's pretty specific, and so that agreement that we have has already been vetted through our attorneys. There would not be much change that would need to be made, nor would they recommend that any award be made for those types of items. So I just wanted to say that before we got too far into discussions.
So unless anybody's really set on Ready, Set, Grow.
And they too provide a service to the children of our families, so it's not because we don't like any of these agencies, it's because
And
money
it
is
isn't
tight.
like, it isn't like we haven't done anything for childcare either. I mean,
Absolutely,
we bought it,
we're
spent
trying.
$200,000 for a piece of property.
Yeah, we're still working, so.
So what did we decided on Salute?
zero.
Kevin?
I had 1,000, but I'll go along with 0.
Okay. Historical Society,
0.
consensus.
Agreed.
Historical Society, Kevin?
Yep, I'll go along with that.
Witter Gallery?
Tyler,
Sure.
did we, I'm sorry, do you mind if I ask a question?
No,
I meant
go
to
ahead.
ask this earlier and I forgot. Have they requested their funding for this current fiscal year yet?
For
Witter?
Witter?
Witter, yeah,
Yes, they
yeah,
requested
okay,
it. I haven't seen the reconciliation
okay,
for this grant.
okay, yeah.
So where does that come from?
Excuse me.
Where does Witter Gallery's general funding come from that you're talking about?
The property tax, yeah. I just was wondering if we
So
could
that's
see.
not this?
No, it's
No,
no, this
no.
is a different one. I just,
For the
some of
current year,
the,
Oh,
I
for
guess our
current year,
question was,
okay.
some of the application that was this year and last year overlapped. And so I just wanted to,
Yeah,
I meant
So
to ask earlier.
They didn't spend the money that they were allocated last year?
they did not, and this year I haven't gotten a reconciliation for this year either.
Well, for one thing, we did, is that the year we did money for a mural and one was not done?
Yeah, they did the BDU one first instead.
Yeah, and then we took that money was supposed to come back.
And they wanted to repurpose that money for a painting and lighting project, which was also outlined in there, but it was more. So they applied for that in this current year that we're in right now, they applied for it now as well as even for next year. So, but it's outlined in the 2088 agreements that if the monies are not spent for the intended purpose, they must be returned. So we get a reconciliation throughout the year. And I haven't received that for this year, as asked.
And didn't they say something about building improvements too? So would that be kind of the same as Ready Set Grow? I mean, I don't know. They didn't specify exactly what they were doing, but.
Difference is we own that building.
Yeah, okay.
On the outside.
And those were racks
Yeah,
or
racks
something.
and displays
The
and
slat wall type things, I think.
Still at 0.
But on the other hand, if they don't spend it, we can give them more.
I
want Dave to look at my budget.
Maria? Kevin, Witter Gallery?
I'm torn on that one, but I would say under the problems we're having, I'll go with 0 on that one.
Okay. Look at that make money on this. Okay, we're down to Upper Des Moines and SLU. Does anybody prioritize one over the other, or?
Do you know, we can go to Upper Des Moines. Do we know if Upper Des Moines is still, is this like a matching grant? Do they receive a grant for this particular?
This was for,
Emergency financial
Assistance, emergency finance,
finances.
like electricity and stuff like that, I would suspect.
Submit Dana. Do you know what, was there a grant for, Upper Des Moines that you're aware of?
Not that I know of, they
Okay.
go to all the cities and counties that they serve.
Okay.
I mean, out of all of these, although all of the agencies are good, this provides for the people that need it the most. And I've
Yes.
seen them pay water bills, so people can have water in their home, electricity bills, not so much in the winter, but, other times when they just can't afford it.
Do we know how much of it is for people who are in Storm Lake?
It's supposed to be
All of it.
Supposed to be all of
And
it.
so when they do their reconciliation, do they let us know that that money that we've given them is actually going to Storm Lake residents? Is that documented?
They outline it to the specific number of adults and kids that it's affecting that are
Just
residents of
addresses.
Storm Lakes, yeah.
Do the
They do provide that, and that's even on their application too, I believe.
Yeah.
Got wet.
Because last year we went high on Upper Des Moines, we did 25,000. previously we had done 15. It was 7, 7, 10, 15, and then 25. Just for background. So I don't know if we need to do the entire 22, but I think I put 15 down on mine, I think.
Yeah. I mean, they do great things for the community, but I'm more into putting money into things that is gonna make people get out of those situations so they're more sustainable rather than keep giving money, you know. So I can't remember what I put, but I think I put like half of that.
But we had a couple zeros in there.
12,000, yeah.
And I think I put 15, I think.
I put 20.
I put 20?
I'll go with 15.
I was generous.
It's because you were out in California.
Very true. Kevin, what did you say?
I said 12.
15 is good with me.
15.
It's 15 with the rest of you, or not?
Well, this is what I have, so if we put back in the recreation, the kayaks and everything, I put that 15,000 back in. I took that out of the 50,000 that we had to work with. So that would leave a $35,000 balance for outside agencies,
Well,
if that helps.
and we haven't sealed the deal on kayaks, right?
No,
We're
no.
trying to-
But we're trying to
We're
rescue
trying
it.
to
So if
rescue
we put
it.
that back in and then
And see
come
where
up
we're
with ways to increase the revenue off of them, that,
Mhm.
Upper Des Moines gives a lot of services to the local people in many different ways. I think we need to show our support for them so the community also supports them as much as possible. And I think that 15,000 is not out of line.
15?
Yeah,
Personally, I'd rather give to Storm Lake United and Upper Des Moines before kayaks. I mean, if we were gonna take out for
so, wait a minute,
kayaks,
so you
as
said
much
with
as
doing the kayaks, it leaves us with how much for?
35,000.
So split the 35 between the two agencies that you want to support.
I'd still rather put the money that we're putting towards kayaks towards those two. Even though I want the kayaks too. But that's my own opinion.
But we have to make a decision on this part tonight.
Mhm. Yes, because we have to give everything to
Yeah.
the state tomorrow. I know it's
So-
compressed, I know this was a long night, I didn't lie, I did tell you we were gonna sit here for a long
Tell us it was gonna
time.
be freezing outside.
That I
So,
can't control,
can't
but
control that, so
that's what we have, so.
I think if we're gonna give any money, I would say Upper Des Moines and Des Moines. That's me. I said no, it's hard.
Okay, well, let's do Storm Lake United then. Is everybody a no for Storm Lake United or
Storm
not?
Lake United, we gave 20 already, right? We
Correct.
said that membership.
Right.
That's not part of it.
Yeah, so the
And they
balance of
do,
it was
and
the
they
events.
still do get hotel motel tax.
No, they're, all of our hotel motel tax, if you go up, is eaten
So
by
we're keeping-
bond payment. There's really nothing, we don't even get to use, because we're in our balloon payments for the final last few years for hotel motel tax. That's mostly eaten up by bond, if not all of it soon. You can,
Yeah, I think all of it, but a few dollars, which are earmarked for other projects, but it's pretty much the.
How much were they asking for wood, wine, and blues?
it was 15 for Wood, Wine, and Blues, and then it was,
10,000 for a concert series and 15,000 for tourism and marketing. So if there's anything awarded to SLU for that, we'd have to identify it, so we make sure the agreement identifies the intended purpose for it.
So I would do 17.5 for Upper Des Moines and 17.5 for Storm Lake United.
So late, too. So we have, Maria? What are your thoughts on that? 17.5 each place?
I'm still 12 to 15 to Upper Des Moines. Yeah.
15 and 20? They'd be the same. They'd come out with the 35 again.
15 to Storm Lake United?
15 to Upper Des Moines and 20 to Storm Lake United.
I'm just one vote.
You would do the opposite.
I would do less than opposite.
I guess if we go to, let's go to Storm Lake United, what would the money be used for? As Tyler mentioned, what is it? You'd have to specific say wood, wine, and blues.
I'd say wood, wine, and blues.
Which is
20K
15,000.
To Wood, Wine, and Blues.
Yeah.
And then 10 to summer concert series.
Which they,
15 for tourism and marketing.
and we're doing a lot of the tourism marketing and a concert series, in my mind, you can.
They can still
you-
come back too.
You can get, you should try to get sponsors for your concert series.
You can still come back, but we won't have money.
Yeah, I mean, they can do the concert series in a way that they bring in revenue for that. Same thing with Wood, Wine, and Blues. I mean, they are having conversations about paying some of the vendors, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense to me. So,
Thoughts on, Kevin?
I'm listening.
Okay, he's listening.
I'm still in support of, Upper Des Moines for at least 15.
Okay. What about Storm Lake United?
Let's not group them together. We've done them one at a time. What is Upper Des Moines get? I think that's about, we
Yeah,
haven't,
we didn't put up.
we
the
didn't
other
put
side.
anybody else together, so.
Mhm.
and
Okay, so Upper Des Moines,
Upper Des Moines,
15?
15.
15.
15's fine.
I can go with 15.
Okay, Storm Lake United.
15 for the Wood, Wine, and Blues. Doesn't say we have to spend all this money.
Okay, there's 15.
I'm 15. It's less than what they want, because they wanted 20 for Wood, Wine, and Blues, right?
Right, I mean, I just,
Total 50,
Yeah.
60.
Wood, Wine, and Blues, when we did it, cost just shy over 15 grand. It was like 15,800 or something.
For music.
For, and that was the music and the sound person, and there was one more.
Some person, I think, is like $3,000 or $5,000 on
Okay,
its own.
on its own, and then you had the bands.
And the bands, yeah.
And that's what, and then
We do that, we donate the hotel.
you donate the hotel rooms of
The
$5 grand,
8,000.
8,000, oh.
Yeah.
So
I need
they've
to do better
already-
math tonight, so.
they've already gotten all of that lined up for this year, but they didn't include what the cost was in their application, right? They didn't say that what they've negotiated.
Not that specific.
Okay.
That specific.
You know, the Star Spangled Spectacular they did last year because it was a big year. They put on very big bands, and they don't ask for $60,000 or $20,000. They do get police coverage for, great police coverage for a low price. But, I mean, that's a lot of fundraising in town, and, you know, maybe there's an element of Friends of the Storm Lake United that could help fund some of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good point, and there's a board meeting tomorrow, maybe, based on the weather, but, you know, I think if we give them this money, it's with the expectation that they find additional sponsors. They've increased their sponsorship levels, we've got some high-level sponsorships now, they've increased their membership. Actually, I'm on the board, so I mean, so last year, it was tough, because they didn't have the leadership. This year, they're fully in transition, they're ahead of the curve on a lot of things, so.
20,000 it is.
No, I wouldn't do 20. I would do the 15. Because we've already paid $20,000 for the membership.
Yeah.
15? 15, Kevin?
Yep.
Okay, 15.
Okay, that leaves a balance of 5,000.
Do we have to spend it?
No, you don't have to spend it. I was just gonna say, it leaves you a balance of 5,000. We can put it in and do a mid-year request I mean, okay, I'm just throwing it out there.
No,
I'm just
not
throwing
with
it out there.
$5,000.
5,000 could be.
You're gonna have $100,000 request, and you had 5,000 to divvy up.
Well, and, yeah, and I was just
I
saying.
wouldn't be doing that.
No, but we've had that in the past. We did
No,
take that
we-
part out too.
We had much
Mhm.
more in that budget.
And,
past.
and to be honest, not very many people, except for a few, actually, or entities even requested that, so, but, okay, so that 5,000 will go into general fund balance, okay. All right, and just for towards the golf, towards Tyler,
There we
towards
go.
Tyler's golf course. All right.
Yeah, water park or golf, we got $5,000 in there.
I think for the mayor's golfing habit. Don't pay for that.
Okay.
That's provided the kayaks make money.
Can you still get caddies? Is that still a thing?
Yeah. After you pay $300 in green fees, and then you pay your caddy, and then you have to tip the caddy on top of it.
Oh, my gosh.
So you probably pay your caddy 50 and have to tip him another
That's
25
another
or
world
50.
that I'm not living in.
So,
And it doesn't matter if you make a birdie or not, you still got to.
Yeah, he tells you where. Yeah, you still. Yeah.
so as a quick wrap up here.
Sorry.
No trouble recommended, come on.
Yeah, so as we do a quick wrap up here, we'll submit the levy rate at $15.17 with a few extra numbers behind that. The nominal increase for staff is 2.5%. And then you'll have the collective bargaining employees who are eligible for collective bargaining will have whatever is agreed upon by both parties. We should know that proposal hopefully in the next couple of days if they accept that final proposal from us. And
In a few days, you think?
I'm thinking in a few days. Well, maybe I'm thinking or hopeful. I don't know which one. And any other final questions before we wrap up our night? It's a pleasure spending time with everybody on the wintry, cold, slick
I'm
night.
still waiting for DoorDash to deliver yet.
They're stuck. They haven't been able to get out.
Well, there's no travel advisory, sorry.
What you get for not being here.
So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Councilperson McKeon, second by Councilperson
Everybody drive
Martini.
safely.
Everybody else? All in favor, say aye.
It's barely made it.
Thanks, Kevin.
So,
Hope everybody makes it home fine. I got home. I barely got home.
what's our best route?